Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the regular City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. The time is 6:02 p.m. And would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll let everyone know that just as a matter of process this evening, one of our computers up here is not behaving. And so when we do the vote electronically, Ms. Files will be voting by voice. So just so you know that that's the reason she is. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
J. David Reed.
Present.
Dave Frank.
Present.
Judy Ann Files.
Present.
Doug Glassbell.
Present.
Ed Ulibarri.
Here.
All city councilors are present.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, do we have any changes or additions to deletions to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Having none, this is the time that I will call for public comment. I would assume many of you here tonight to make public comment, so could I have a show of hands, please, of who all wishes to make public comment tonight?
At this time, are different agenda items.
Well, this is for non-agenda items only. When we get to a specific agenda item, you'll have the opportunity at the time we're considering that item to make your comments. But the first public comment is for non-agenda items. So let me see hands again for non-agenda items. Okay. The rest of you are here, obviously, to speak to agenda items. So with that in mind, even though we have very few who wish to make public comment, I will read the requirements for public comment. The call for public comment agenda item is a time when concerned members of the community may publicly voice their concerns and discuss items of interest. Please note that no formal action will be taken on the matters raised during this time. Comments made during this time should be addressed to the council and pertain to matters of at least general importance to the city and its operations. Please be aware that neither city council nor city staff are expected to respond or engage in discussion or debate. Please refrain from any personal attacks, disagreements, personnel and employment matters, the use of profanity or ethnic, racial, or gender-oriented slurs, as they may be considered disorderly conduct which violates state or local law. So with that in mind, I will call for public comment, and remember the rules also say that public comments are limited to 3 minutes each. And if you're making a comment, and this goes for all of our items where public comment is invited. If you are following somebody who has essentially said what you want to say, for expediency, I would appreciate it if you would simply say, I agree with what Mr. Jones or Ms. Smith said, unless you have something in addition you would like to add to that. So with that in mind, I will, 30 seconds before your 3 minutes are up, I will gently tell you you have 30 seconds left so you can wrap up your thoughts. With that in mind, who would like to go first? Mr. Smith.
Thank you. My name is Ron Smith, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and also for the opportunity to meet with some of the crew here last night. Thank you very much for making that possible. Our original objective was to address the concerns for the safety and welfare of Montrose citizens that reached a crescendo back on March 19th of earlier this year. And after all has been said and not a whole lot done, we feel like wasting time up here anymore on Tuesday nights probably won't continue. But we really do want to take advantage of the situation that we're concerned about. So my takeaways from conversation last night are that citizens and legal immigrants and illegal immigrants are treated the same, whether it's civilian-wise, criminally, or whatever in Montrose, which we can all hold judgment on that if we want to, but I think that was a good clarification, and thank you for that. I think the objective about sanctuary versus non-sanctuary status is mostly words, and without teeth, we don't really have to worry about whether we go through that exercise or not. Again, that's my take on this, and that it's basically a moot issue. Another takeaway by federal, state, and county law mandates that citizens, legal or illegal, are treated equally in our community. I also understanding that our city police cannot refer or report illegal immigrants to ICE, excuse my tongue, and that I've also took away that there's no financial implications, positive or negative, that have been shared with us when questioned about whether there's sanctuary or non-sanctuary city. What I'd like to propose tonight and challenge our entire Montrose crew is the leadership to take all the appropriate and legal and ethical measures in the next 90 days to develop a contingency plan to safeguard our citizens and rebuild trust in our defense against the high likelihood that sanctuary city crime, drugs, homelessness, and building takeovers are by unstoppable gangs is not spilling over into Montrose. Truly, this is America. We love we love legal immigration, and we are all descendants of legal immigrants. So I just wanted to state that. Another item, lodging tax proposal with 30 seconds left. I would encourage you to disband that going to vote. We're facing school debt bond issue of over $250 million. We've had an increase in 70% of our own personal property tax in just 4 years. We have compounding inflation, insurance and premiums, taxes piled on taxes. And a just quick memo that the people that are going to come see me next month are considering maybe not coming in, and they're going to charge an extra $49 on top of the tax already because of the lodging. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to go next?
Good evening. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Krebs, and it's my understanding that our city charter was updated and put to vote in 2014. Since then, there have been many, many changes in our world and our town. As a home rule city, I respectfully propose that you provide us with the necessary requirements to petition for a citizen review committee. I believe our city attorney has agreed to provide the requirements to the small group as discussed last evening. Thank you also for coordinating a small group to meet with our city police. This will surely help restore our trust and faith in our local governing institutions and police force. Secondly, I'd like to suggest at this time that there's a problem in Montrose, problem in River City. It has to do with people riding bicycles, often at dawn. Well, it's still dark. Maybe they have lights, maybe they don't. Maybe they have reflective clothing. They usually wear black. I think this is very, very dangerous, and I think that there needs to be some discipline on these people that ride bikes this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to make comment on non-agenda items? Going once, twice. Public comment is closed. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is City Council consideration of the minutes of the August 6th, 2024 regular City Council meeting and the August 12th special City Council meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the August 6, 2024 regular City Council meeting and the August 12, 2024 special City Council meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Please vote. Ms. Files? And that passes unanimously. Item number 7, City Council consideration of an application for a new tavern liquor license at 39 West Main Street for Black Peregrine Food and Beverage Services LLC, doing business as the Association for Consumption on the licensed premises. And for that, I'll turn it over to City Attorney Chris Dowsey.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. Before City Council is an application for a new tavern license for Black Peregrine Food and Beverage Services LLC, doing business as the association, located at 39 West Main Street. This is a public hearing for the new tavern license. The permit is in order, and fees have been paid. From city staff's review of the application, we've seen nothing that would prevent council from issuing this license, notwithstanding this hearing. Council may make a decision at the end of this hearing or defer for up to 30 days. At this time, I will ask the applicant to step forward and introduce themselves to the council and announce the home address for the record.
Hello, I'm Sarah Fishering. I am the owner and will also be the manager at this particular location. And this is for the association that will be the bar located within the Potato Grower building, which I think you're all pretty familiar with. So.
Mayor Reed, do you and the councilors wish to examine the petitioner at this point, or do you wish that I ask some of the preliminary questions that are frequently
I
asked?
think we'll defer to the city attorney if that's okay with council.
Thank you. Could you please tell us about the association?
Sure. So the association will be a bar, as I said, located within the Potato Grower building. It's kind of the core central area of the Potato Grower building. There will be other businesses around the core as well. Those will include some retail and some food businesses. Those are separate from this particular alcohol business. The bar will serve beer, wine, and liquor, and will, of course, feature some of our excellent locally manufactured products, including beer, wine, and spirits manufactured here in Montrose. And we hope that the unique model to Montrose with the mix of businesses serving different types of food and the alcohol and the retail, super unique to Montrose, not unique in the state of Colorado, but we hope that this will offer great new opportunities for residents and visitors alike to socialize and interact with each other and enjoy not just the association, but also those other food businesses and retail businesses as well.
Thank you. State law requires the needs and desires of the neighborhood be considered during this process. We have determined that the neighborhood is the city of Montrose. Do you understand this?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree with the city being the neighborhood?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe the needs and desires of the neighborhood are being met, or would this license help meet such needs and desires?
Yes, I do. Believe that this would meet the needs of the neighborhood.
Thank you. So petitions were circulated. I believe there were 48 petitions filled out. Give me just one moment. 48 signatures were submitted. 4 signatures were determined to be insufficient. 2 were outside of city limits, and 2 failed to provide the age of the signer and failed to indicate support or opposition. Of the 44 signatures that were valid, 44 were in support of the license. 2 comments that were echoing a little bit. 2 comments that were received is Montrose needs this. Additionally, an amazing community spot adds so much to the area, can't wait for more. Are you familiar with the liquor laws of the state of Colorado?
Yes, I am.
How will you stop underage drinking from happening at the association?
We will ensure that everybody involved in any kind of alcohol service is properly trained in mitigating both underage drinking and intoxication, as well as trying to prevent drunk driving as well.
Perfect. Are you familiar with the available liquor law education and server training classes for licensees and their employees?
Yes, I am.
Do you understand that it is the city intends to have all businesses with a liquor license have their owners and employees take these classes?
Yes, I am.
Would you be willing to commit to the council that if the license is issued to you, that you as the licensee, managers, and all servers attend the next available training after issuance if they are not already certified?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor Reed, council, any further questions?
Believe not. That being the case, I would entertain a motion. Oh, that's right, we got to hold a hearing. Sorry. I will open a hearing and ask if there's any public comment. Seeing none, I will close the hearing and accept a motion.
I move to approve the new tavern liquor license at 39 West Main Street for Black Peregrine Food and Beverage Service LLC, doing business as the association for consumption on the licensed premises.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Yes.
Talking computer. Yeah.
Hers is not working, that's what she said.
Yes.
Have you cast your vote?
Yeah,
Okay.
pushed the button.
Oh. Um, It's one of those nights. And that does pass unanimously.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate all
Thank
of the
you.
council members and, of course, staff. Thank you.
And best of luck.
Thank you.
Next item, a public hearing will be held in accordance with the requirements of the Community Development Block Grant Program for project number 20-508, rehabilitation of the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club, and this will be handled by Community Development Specialist Christopher Ottinger.
I will be taking over for Mr. Ottinger this
I thought you looked a little
evening.
strange for a second.
So just for the record, I'm Jace Hockwalt. I'm the Community Development Director here at the city. Yeah, unfortunately, Chris is out this afternoon, but this will be a fairly quick item. And as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, this is specific to the Community Development Block Grant, or the CDBG grant for the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club. Back in February of 2020, the city applied for a community development block grant on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club in the amount of $600,000 for the purposes of construction of a new clubhouse. The clubhouse was proposed to be approximately 18,000 square feet and had a variety of classrooms, recreational facilities, and was the subject of a long fundraising campaign. Shortly after that application, COVID hit and the pandemic hit, and this really bumped up construction prices. And this really made the Boys and Girls Club look at different options moving forward, and realizing that a brand new facility just might be out of reach due to skyrocketing costs. There was an opportunity to purchase and remodel the property at 1869 East Main Street. So the Boys and Girls Club did close on this property in September of 2022. And started the rehab process in January of this year. So as the remodel does wrap up and the grant starts to close out, one of the closeout requirements is actually to have a public hearing. So there's no formal action taken by council this evening, just a public hearing where we as staff would just take notes if there is any public comment. So with that, brief kind of presentation from me, I'll hand it over to Bud Taylor if he has anything to add about the project itself, and then we can open it up to hearing.
I do have one quick comment that the revision of that block grant, that CBD, Community Development Block Grant, say that real time fast, was done with the approval and knowledge, that allocation of that was done with the approval and knowledge of DOLA.
Correct, yes. So the state, this is fully approved by the state. This has been vetted for the last several years through the state. And yeah, that was vetted back when this all occurred as far as the acquisition. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, so just to touch on that just a little bit, we did have to present to City Council, and City Council did have to kind of talk on our behalf as well to DOLA to make sure that the switch from building a facility to renovation was appropriately handled. So yeah, I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank city staff for all of their time, all their efforts, everything that they did to help make this project a reality. It really helped us. We now have 2 gym spaces, and it's just awesome. The kids love it. We're just moving in a fantastic forward direction and seeing more kids more often, and yeah, just having a blast at Boys and Girls Club. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think one of the most exciting things for me was seeing the sign along Main Street replaced. Yeah, so now that because my granddaughters went there And we were at a birthday party, and random people kept showing up wanting to know what the next movie time was. And so having that sign replaced actually was a really great thing because it actually clarified. But one comment I would like to make is that the extent of the repairs that this grant had covered was repairs to the roof.
No, no roof repairs.
No roof repairs at this point.
Nope,
Okay, so it's all just the interior repairs.
just all interior. So it was primarily demoing a couple of walls on the interior side, opening up where Theater 1 and 2 were at. We were able to leave Theater 3 available for us to utilize. We were able to fill in the sloped floor so it's totally level across, which also helps us with ADA compliance. So totally flat floors, new sport floor, gym court thing. And then new walls. And so all that's left for the remodel is just to finish out the classroom walls. So that'll be under a different construction. So,
I might add that the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club has become a tremendous asset for this community, and want to personally thank you for what you guys do for the youth of our community, and it's only getting better, particularly with this new facility and the ability to take care of more of our kids. So thank you for doing what you do, and thank you to your board, and we really see you as a partner in our community for our youth. Thanks.
thank you, appreciate it.
So with that,
One final plug. So now that the facilities are coming along and we're getting those interior spaces finished up, how many more kids are going to be able to attend club?
So depends on different factors such as busing, everything like that from after-school care. But we're hoping to get 200 on an average daily attendance for our after-school. But during the summertime, that's our easy number that we want to hit. We want to try and go to 250 kids every day. So
And is there an application process that people could be made aware of?
yes, so fill out an application at bcbgc.org. It's just right on the front homepage. Just register now. So we've got multiple ways to do that. And of course, they can always call the office and we'll get them set up there.
Excellent, thank you.
Of course.
thank you. Therefore, in accordance with the rules of the Community Block Grant Development Program, I will open a hearing and call for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I'll close the hearing, and since council does not have to take action, we will move on to the next item before us. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh. I thought you were late in asking for public comment. Next item, 9, City Council consideration of Resolution 2024-14, a resolution of the City of Montrose, Colorado, submitting to a vote of qualified electors of the city at the coordinated election held on November 5th, 2024, a ballot issue concerning the increase of the hotel room tax from 0.9% to 6%. And for that, I'll also turn this one over to the City Attorney, Chris Dowsey.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. Before council is a resolution to add ballot language to the upcoming, what is going to be a combined election. This is not a standard election for the city. However, with this question, it will be a combined election for the city and the general state election. This was brought forth originally in July to increase the hotel room tax. What has been proposed and what is proposed for this ballot language is an increase from 0.9% to 6%. This ballot language also gives a breakdown of uses for this 6%. We discussed this at the work session on August 5th, and I believe I have really put into this what council desired. So 25% would be for right-of-way maintenance, including streets, alleyways, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. 17% would be for more childcare services in Montrose. 33% would be for incentives to have developers build more affordable housing. And then 25% is for the Tourism Promotional Fund. That's generally used for the purpose of promoting tourism, advertising the community, attracting conferences, conventions, and meetings, or for other purposes related to attracting tourists and visitor business to the city, which also includes funding for events for the community as a whole. With this, you'll note in there that it refers to Ordinance 2671. There is no Ordinance 2671 at this moment. That will be brought forth at the next meeting. If anything on here were to change, with the timing to get this onto the ballot, we do have one more council session. So if there is anything that needs to be changed at this moment, we still have one session to actually change it. So I wanted to leave a little flexibility there. However, it will be the next ordinance that will really make this effective. The ordinance will be presented. You will all vote on it. If it passes, then it will wait for the actual vote of the people. If the vote of the people vote it through, then it becomes effective on January 1 of 2025. So that's going to be the procedure of how this goes through. With that, I will leave it to any questions.
Council, any questions for Mr. Dowsey or comments you wish to make?
I think the comment I would make is, I think we need to point out that we were the lowest hotel tax in the area. So this
Correct.
is just kind of trying to bring us up to where other locations are.
Correct. We were the lowest in the area. This does not, the 6% does not bring us to anywhere close to the highest in the area. I don't have the numbers offhand, and I wouldn't want to speak to something that I don't know off the top of my head. But 6% is right around the average.
Any other comments?
Part of our discussion, too, included the fact that this does more than the 25% that goes for tourism promotional fund. It does more than that. It also pays for community events that we want to have. So it's items that help those of us who live in the community to enjoy the things we have.
Further discussion? Questions?
You know, I would comment too that we have discussed this probably off and on for the last 5 or 6 years. So we're really finally getting around to consolidating it and getting it done.
Yes, this issue was brought forth at some point last year, to which, this was researched and the like, so.
I support it based on the fact that we're getting 25% of this funds for right-of-way maintenance, including maintenance of streets, alleyways, curb gutters, and sidewalks. I would like to see a higher percentage than 25%, but this is what we all agreed on. I believe that it's necessary to have more money spent for maintenance as Montrose is growing, and as we grow, we have more people using our streets and our sidewalks, and I think we really, in my own personal opinion, when you drive down 3rd Street North and it doesn't have any curb or gutter, this kind of makes me think we could use more funds for that.
And I'll say this isn't going to be the only funding for right-of-way maintenance. That also gets budgeted from other funds. This is not the sole place for funding for it.
This is just bonus funding.
Just the add-on.
Yep, we all agree with that. Just kind of an explanation of what the breakdown of it is and the logic behind that is that when we just first discussed this, that we discussed the fact that when tourists come in, they put burdens on our area in our labor force because we have to hire more service workers to compensate for the increase in tourism. And those workers have to have a place to live. And that's why the money's going toward the housing. And those workers also have to have childcare. And that's why the money's going toward childcare. That is in addition to the fact that in our childcare survey that we had done a couple years ago, that Montrose is what they deem a childcare desert, and we don't have enough childcare to support the people that we have already living here. If we add more workers for our tourism industry, we have to do something. We have to fund that somehow, and that was the logic behind those. And the affordable housing, obviously, we want housing in Montrose. We're desperately need affordable housing, and there's only so much pie, so we can only slice it so many ways, but we're trying to allocate it in the most logical and most thoughtful way to benefit our community.
Any further comments from council or questions? If not, I'll open it up for public comment.
Hello, my name is Bianca Diaz. I live at 747 South 2nd Street, and I would like to request 12 minutes for the Uncompahgre Valley Alliance to speak about this. We have 4 speakers. Are we able to speak as a group, or do we need?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. It's 3
Okay.
minutes per person.
Okay. So we are the Uncompahgre Valley Alliance. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that's been bringing folks together for positive change in Montrose since 1982. Some of you might remember us from the child care needs assessment that you mentioned back in 2021, but we're here to talk about something different today, how earmarking funds for public transportation and the lodging tax increase will benefit the tourists that visit our community, all the workers that support their stay, and the community at large. So yeah, and I'm going to pass it over to Lisa, and she's going to talk about why this is a priority for us.
My name is Lisa Thomas, and I've lived in Montrose since 1984, and I really want to see Montrose continue to grow responsibly. I joined UVA because I like its focus on citizens' needs. In December, UVA held a meeting of over 50 Montrose residents, and the topic was just what are the needs of Montrose. Transportation received overwhelming support. There were comments like, traffic is a problem impacting life. Public transportation is convenient and serves immediate basic daily needs. And improving Montrose transportation feels doable. In June, UVA conducted a survey for people riding the bus. So I took the bus several times and talked to passengers, heard their stories. Everyone who takes the bus really needs the bus because they don't drive for one reason or another. They don't have a car. They use the bus for everything from appointments to grocery shopping, and most importantly, getting to and from work. It is so important to keep Montrose residents employed, and that can be accomplished when public transportation is readily available, convenient, and affordable. One of the quotes in our meeting in December was, "Traffic is a problem impacting life. The safety of our citizens as well as tourists who come here is of utmost importance, and studies show that public transportation can reduce the chance of getting in an accident by 90%. And finally, tourism and public transportation are strongly linked. For example, a family comes to stay in Montrose, they stay downtown in an Airbnb, they want to go out to restaurants, do a little shopping, see the local sites, and wouldn't that be nice if we had public local transportation that could take them there? They wouldn't have to worry about taking their own vehicle, parking problems, traffic, just getting around a town they don't know. So with the increase in lodging tax in November, this all does seem doable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having us here. My name's Kendra Stuckey. I've resided in Montrose for past 5 years. As a native Colorado, of Colorado. I've lived and raised my children in 7 Western Slope rural communities that have been faced with the same growth that we're looking at now. The improved infrastructure of their public transportation in these towns has proved to be not only critical but well received, and as a result, all these communities have been successful in being present and meeting community and tourism needs. Why would you want to invest in public transportation? Well, from a tourist standpoint, public transportation alleviates some of the challenges that tourists encounter and facilitate the stay in our city. Upgrading our transportation also serves our citizens, so it's a win-win situation. Furthermore, the survey that you mentioned earlier really did indicate that the top priorities were for traffic flow and congestion management, as well as safety of street lighting. Public transportation is a viable solution to reducing traffic congestion, and if we had well-lit benches at bus stops, people could feel comfortable while they're waiting for transit. It's obvious that many people commute from our city and vice versa, and also throughout the county. And these neighboring communities essentially transportation actually meets the needs and allows us to become a thriving community. During our deep listening and survey work, we also established the need to, based on transportation, based on economy. You know, a lot of people do not have cars, others are dependent on public transportation to be available as they face affordable housing and childcare issues. In 2021, the City Council passed the Envision 2040 Comprehension Plan, and I'd just like to remind all of you and the people in the audience that in that mission, it states that it will be a place where the transportation system is functional. The rest of the mission also really embraces what Uncompahgre Valley Alliance actually is.
30 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. With successful city backed organizations like DART and MURA, focusing on restoration and revitalization, we believe public transportation plays an integral part. Many other communities, Grand Junction, Durango, Gunnison, Crested Butte, Telluride, have well-funded systems. We're fortunate to be able to use them as ways to gain information, and it is...
I'm sorry, your time's up.
But it's exciting to think that that might be something we could move forward with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Harley Womble. I've lived in Montrose for 25 years now. I just wanted to say as well that as an organization, we could put our powers of voter education and voter turnout to use in passing this lodging tax increase. We also know other entities in our organization and around town would stand to gain a lot from better public transportation, like the Rec District, DART, TCR, CMU, Boys and Girls Club as well would be an organization that would have a lot to gain from this. And I just wanted to thank you as well for hearing the UVA's thoughts on improving public transportation and utilizing this lodging tax as a way to do that. Thank you all so much.
Hello, my name's Gary Clark. I reside at 1512 Dover Road, and I'm the Executive Director at All Points Transit. I can't really speak more than what's been said regarding public transportation. It's something that our community very much needs. We recently redid all of our public bus routes to incorporate as much of Montrose as we possibly could under the restraints we already had. And that includes, and I want to champion as well for Boys and Girls Club, that includes a stop we added there so that more kids could easily get to Boys and Girls Club. And it's a huge part of our community. It's something that is a necessity on a daily basis, especially to our elderly, disabled, and those who without access to personal vehicles or driver's licenses. Especially affects those who have had to have their driving privileges revoked. due to age, vision, whatever it might be that's affecting them. And it's really tough to give up that freedom. And that's what we're here for, is to give people that freedom. Without a well-funded public transportation system, those people lose that freedom altogether, and they rely on friends and family who may or may not be able to get them where they need to go. All Points Transit is currently operating our public bus service as an addition to our service that was added about a decade and a half ago, in addition to our door-to-door service. That public bus service currently operates at a deficit of nearly $217,000 per year. The only reason we were able to keep it going is due to the funding received for our door-to-door service, but again, it keeps it we're at a heavy deficit with that. Additionally, All Points Transit is part of the city's emergency preparedness plan, and it's crucial that we have the resources needed to fulfill that role effectively. So what I'm asking today is that I'm asking the council to include language in the ballot that allocates 30% of the funds from the lodging tax to All Points Transit for public transportation improvements. If this allocation is included in the ballot language, of course, and the measure passes, we would ask that take place of the current annual contributions that the city's making, which is approximately $20,000 plus $5,000 for our Kids Ride Free in the summer program. And All Points will also work with Uncompahgre Valley Alliance to
30 seconds, sir.
Thank you. To champion and lobby for the passage of this bill. We'll do everything we can to make sure it passes if this is something that the council is willing to do for us. And I want to thank you for your time and everything you do for All Points Transit, and we hope to help the community grow along with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Public comment? Any further council discussion?
I think that's all valuable information. I think that really is something for us to think about. I would be willing to maybe have a conversation about how to maybe reallocate some of the funding. I will be really honest, I don't think we could do 30%. That would cut too deeply into programs that we already feel very deeply about. But I would be willing to certainly have a conversation about maybe juggling the numbers a little bit.
Sure. Something that we can do, we could add language in the, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling up to the resolution. The 25% for the Tourism Promotional Fund, we could add language if required, if you would like to add this in here, that including funding for events, or we could put transportation to events for the community, so that this would be transportation for events. That would be a simple way to do it. However, this is council's wishes. I'm happy to do however we would like to, so I will leave it open to you.
I guess my question to council would be, is there any desire to reconsider the allocations that have been discussed and that are set forth in the resolution?
Yeah, I think that they're doing a service that the city does not supply, so I would certainly support some discussion on that.
Well, I suppose we have a couple of options, Mr. Attorney. Because
personally like the city attorney's option by adding it to that 25%. I just, again, I hate to see all the numbers really change. There is an opportunity from what I gather, when we're talking about transportation for tourism and activities, and I think that would be the proper place to put it.
Yes, so just to be clear, it would be for these events, so the transportation would be for community events. So it's not going to be just an outright for transportation, but it is going to be transportation for such events. Is that, if that is council's wish, we can vote this resolution down, and this is why I actually left it for this flexibility, since we have the extra council meeting. We can vote this down. I will bring a new resolution at the next council session. This will actually have the ordinance with it. This is, I again, planned for this, just in case. So I would be happy to do so. My direction at this point would be add language in for transportation for these events. Outside of that, no further direction.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Pro Tem, but I think you were suggesting a reconsideration of the allocations themselves. Is that?
When I'm looking at this, and I don't want to open a can of worms, I mean, we had a lot of good discussion about this. I think the 25% for streets is untouchable. That one, I think, I want to juggle with. If we took 2% off the childcare, 3% off the housing, and 5% off the tourism promotional fund, then we could do 10%, but I don't want to like totally upset what we've already discussed. This is just, I'd like to bounce this off staff and see what Bill thinks about that.
Is there a desire on the part of council to have further discussion on this matter? As stated by the city attorney, it can come back at the next meeting.
I think that the discussion we've had will give the city attorney some direction on coming back with some a little bit different language that we can then go ahead and vote on.
But I think if we're going to do that, we need to be very specific as to what that additional language would be.
Yes,
We're presenting two different separate options here.
I will state that I will need specific direction. Next council meeting is going to be the final meeting that we can pass this resolution to where it actually gets on the ballot. So I need it to be
More
crystal clear.
specific.
Yeah.
So right now, the two options are to commit of the 25% for events, to commit a portion of that for transportation to these events, to and from these events, and the other one is to look at a reallocation of what is before us now, taking a little bit away from 3 or 4 of them and creating a 10% commitment to transportation. Those are the two options I've heard discussed.
I'm not married to any of that idea, so I'd like to get some.
Mr. Bell?
I would recommend, it didn't come up in our discussions about transportation. We just didn't talk about that. We already, as a city, support All Points Transit in a variety of ways. We have them built into our annual budget in a couple different locations. We help with the kids getting to the rec center kind of stuff, plus just general operations. So we definitely are partners, and they are part of our emergency response plan and that type of thing. Rather than piecemeal a little out of each of the top items, I think it would be the easiest if we wanted to broaden it out a bit, because the way the city attorney described it would only allow transportation to and from special events. If the council wanted to add in just a little bit of dedicated funding toward general public transportation, it wouldn't guarantee it goes to All Points, because there might be other public transportation out there. And I wouldn't recommend earmarking a particular organization, but if you wanted to do public transportation, I think budget-wise, it would be easiest to drop the 25% to 20% or 22%, and then just add in another line to be used toward public transportation.
So just take
2 or
5%?
3% or something like that.
Just take 5% off of the tourism promotional fund and allocate dedicated 5% for public transportation?
Yeah, because in all of our discussions, I think those are the bare minimums up above. We want to put the most amount of money possible into more street maintenance to go over and, above what we're already doing. We want to work on the housing piece and the childcare piece. So if we start dwindling those down, we don't get to make the impact to the community that we really want.
I agree with that.
Where the bottom one is truly the generalized catch-all that just drops into the normal OBT budget.
So we can further discuss this, but if we were to accept what Mr. Bell is saying, then we would need a motion to adopt this resolution, amend it to read, and then the reallocation as per his suggestion.
Is that what Mr. Dowsey would recommend, or do we need to just vote this down and
I
come
mean, we
back with
can
fresh
just
language?
vote it down, and I can write up added in there.
Or just table it?
Since we have the flexibility of having one more council meeting, I recommend just voting it down, and then I'll bring a new resolution for the next council meeting.
Can we
We
just,
can do it either way, though.
couldn't we also just table it for reconsideration at the next meeting?
We can certainly continue this out. Yeah,
I like that idea.
I think I like that idea the best.
Yeah.
sure. That sounds great.
So we would need a motion to continue consideration of
So
Item
I would
number
make
10.
that motion that we continue the rewording of this allocations until our next city council meeting.
I second also.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
Yes.
And we have a unanimous vote. Item number 10, City Council consideration of a Montrose County Elections intergovernmental agreement between the Montrose County Clerk and Recorder and the City of Montrose for the placement of a lodging tax ballot issue on, hold on. Lodging tax ballot issue on the November 5th, 2024 general election ballot. Mr. Dowsey.
Thank you again, Mr. Reed. This is just another formality to get included in the election. We do have to enter into an IGA, intergovernmental agreement with the county in order for them to provide the services of getting the ballot language actually on the ballot. So this is going to be our last chance to enter into that agreement, and it does need to be signed by the mayor. So I'd leave it to you.
This is really a pro forma matter, right?
Correct. It's really just to, again, have the county, get into an agreement with the county to where they're going to perform these services for the city. It also outlines what the city will be doing in regards to the election as well.
Council? No questions, no discussion. I'll accept public comment. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Montrose County Election Intergovernmental Agreement between Montrose County Clerk and Recorder and the City of Montrose as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion, a second, please vote.
Yes.
And there is a unanimous vote. Next item, 11. City Council consideration of ordinance 2670 on first reading, an ordinance of the City of Montrose, Colorado, updating Title VI, Chapter 1 of the Official Code of the City of Montrose, Colorado, repealing and replacing Title VI, Chapter 1, Section 10, 6-1-10, regarding unauthorized camping, repealing and replacing Title VI, Chapter 1, Section 12, 6-1-12, regarding sleeping on sidewalks, streets, curbs, parking spaces, alleys, public right-of-way, or within doorways prohibited, and amending Title 9, Chapter 10, Section 1, 9-10-1, regarding park hours. And for that, I'll turn it over to Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Matt Magliaro.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, also members of the public. My name is Matt Magliaro. I'm here on a proposed ordinance 2670 to change the park hours, which is an existing code, MC 9-10-1, and a proposal to add ordinances. Currently, those sections are reserved and empty. 6110, unauthorized camping, 6112, titled remaining after
Excuse me,
notice.
Mr. Magliaro. Sorry to interrupt you, but is your mic on?
It is. Oh, is it? Our city engineer fixed it. Is that working better?
Yeah, that is so much better.
Okay.
You're worth,
All right.
you're worth
Try
every
that
penny
again.
we pay you, Mr. Murphy.
That's why we keep him around. So,
That's right.
A red line, I'll pick up here. A red line version appears on pages 47 through 53 of tonight's session packet. A clean version on the pages preceding it, 40 through 46. There is a staff memo of introduction that appears on pages 37 through 39 of tonight's session packet. This was discussed at a recorded work session that was held on August 5th, 2024. Recording of that discussion, which involved a section-by-section description of the ordinance language across all three, is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel. The memo also covers a good deal of that presentation topically, as well as the background law from the United States Supreme Court, so I don't intend to recover that same ground. One thing I did want to point out from the memo, in 2023, the city did a community survey of city residents. It was the first one done since 2016. It's posted on the website of the city. About 413 households or so responded to it via mail. One of the things asked on it was a perception of safety in various sites, in various situations. And one notable finding that emerged out of it was that respondents to that question, for the areas covered by the question, it was lowest in the city parks of the areas surveyed. We did not have a majority of people respond that they felt safe in the parks. And that was a difference between the 2023 survey and the 2016 survey. About 21% of respondents reported feeling unsafe in the city parks on the 2023 survey. And a percentage number dropped by 10% between the 2016 and 2023 survey on people reporting a feeling of safety there. So while 76% rather were happy with the quality of city parks and open spaces in general that the city offers, park safety has been raised as a concern by citizens to various city departments since in the recent Baldridge Park Master Plan outreach, as well as citizen comments to council and to members of staff received through the present writing. I'll present tonight an executive summary of the proposal, as well as discuss the three material changes that were made between the work session presentation and tonight in the packet, and I'll highlight by page number the red line when we get there. I'm going to start with our existing code. We have a code on park hours, that's 9-10-1. The section declares it to be unlawful in general for, and I'm summarizing, for persons to enter upon or remain upon any of the municipal parks outside the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. unless other hours are posted. And there are 4 separate carve-out provisions as exceptions. The proposal does not change the park hours in A of that section, but there's change to Part B. But I want to emphasize something in the memo that bears repeating. Part B in the ordinance is a citable violation, meaning if council votes to not approve the proposed change, this section remains in effect. It can be cited as is into the municipal court, as it has been from time to time. And for first violations proven beyond a reasonable doubt are subject to penalties for an adult of 364 days in jail and a fine of $2,650 or both. That was what was intended for this ordinance. That's borne out by the legislative history. Since work session and now, we've done a little bit of research into the passage of this in September 1st, 1988 by the then City Council, by and through Ordinance 1373. At the time, Council was presented a concern by staff that people who were using the parks late at night were creating a nuisance for the surrounding neighborhoods from noise, damage to park property, and that there was a desire to set hours for the then 7 parks in the city system, for the Montrose Golf Course, and for some other city-owned fields that were owned by the city at the time. The minutes of the first reading on August 18th of 1988 reflects the intent of that council to have violators punished by a combination of fine, jail, or both. So it was intended as a citable ordinance. What the proposal tonight does is move the citable ordinance piece of 9-10-1 out of the Parks Code into Title VI, where most of the provisions cited into the Montrose Municipal Court reside. One change here in the, skipping with 9-10-1, regarding the exceptions from the work session, we have removed the language, camping is authorized on public property within the city of Montrose year-round only at Lions Park, but subject to permit, and relabeled C. That's on page 52 of the packet in the red line. To Councilman Glassbow's question, I have a better answer to it now after some of the legislative history since the work session than I had then, which is what I didn't know. It used to be Lions Park actually was a sponsored campground by the town's Lions Club. There's reference to it as a tourist park, as well as a sponsored campground. In 1924, it was $0.25 to camp there per night, was the camping fee. Eventually, it did become a full-fledged park within the city municipal system. So likely that history informed that choice of why Lions Park was picked out in particular in this existing code, as it was listed in 1988. In discussion with staff currently, this provision in MC 910-1B was little used and has been little used. Requests have been rarely made. The last time a permit was issued was 14 years ago in 2010. We have authorization in what used to be D is now new C to camp throughout the system pursuant to a festival events or events use permit. One of the examples I gave at the work session was 4th of July, which we allowed camping within the park system pursuant to that permit. That would be inclusive of Lions Park. So the section was removed in part because it seemed redundant to that provision, and also it was rarely used. The rest and remainder of the language on allowable circumstances for camping remain as presented from the work session. Unauthorized camping and the other ordinance sandwich the trespass ordinance, MC 6-1-11. That's been the main tool since I've been prosecuting Montrose Municipal Court and code that's been used in situations such as what are covered in the ordinances. These proposals are drafted with reference to the codes of 7 different Colorado cities, as well as the Grants Pass, Oregon ordinances that were passed upon by the United States Supreme Court in its recent June 2024 decision. The unauthorized camping ordinance proposal covers the conduct of both camping on public property without the authorizations in the previous section we just talked about, as well as on private property when done without the express consent of the property owner or agent of the owner. That's A and B respectively of that ordinance. C provides for a separate prohibition as conduct to construct or erect structures on municipal property without authorization from the city to do that. There's definitions that follow. They're intended to describe with particularity the conduct of camping, reside or dwell, and the scope of what public property means by the ordinance. Those, as discussed in the work session, are set out in some detail because of a concern to avoid a challenge on grounds of void for vagueness, i.e. the law doesn't provide adequate notice to a person reading it, and they have to guess at the scope of the provision in order to be compliant. A first offense in the penalty section is $100. That as a civil infraction. That is the penalty in state code for a civil infraction. It's also how I would point out and did point out in the memo, the state park and outdoor rec code treats camping on land or water located in a state park or state rec area in undesignated areas for camping or without a valid permit in a designated area for camping. I would also point out that's a lesser penalty than what first offenders under trespass, if there's a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, would face in Montrose Municipal Court. That penalty is $120. Second or subsequent violations proven beyond a reasonable doubt are subject to jail sentencing, and that's consistent with the ordinances the U.S. Supreme Court passed upon in the City of Grants Pass decision. There is a clarification add here, and this is different from the work session, that the sentencing court on a second offense does not have the ability to suspend the minimum. That's the last line in 6110E. It's page 49 of the packet. One addition I wanted to highlight also that's a change from the work session presentation, 6110I, added language authorizing the city's code enforcement officer to issue citations under this section. This authorization is consistent with language elsewhere in the code designating basically our code enforcement officer as a peace officer for the limited ability to issue process. While there's a procedural with the police department that goes along with the enforcement of this section that assigns a lot of the enforcement responsibilities to patrol divisions and patrol officers, it was thought that since we now have an employee staffed in this role, it would be beneficial to have this authorization. So that is the third and last change between work session and this current proposal. MC 6112 sets out a variant of trespass. The first sentence or first section in A is drawn from a Grand Junction ordinance. It reads, reading from page 50, sleeping on a public sidewalk, street, curb, parking space, alley, lane, breezeway, public right-of-way, or in a space within a doorway, entryway abutting a public sidewalk is prohibited as unsafe, as this conduct may obstruct pedestrian and/or vehicular traffic, may inhibit the use of these spaces by the disabled in violation of federal and state law, and may place the person sleeping and/or the public in danger of harm. Subsections B and C are the citable provisions constituting the ordinance violation, but both are modified by subsection D. That requires, before a citation is issued as a condition precedent, that a police officer, firefighter, acting under a discharge of their authority, or a property owner or the owner's agent has to issue a cease and desist warning, and that the person nonetheless remains in defiance of that warning. These are conditions precedent to issuing a citation, and they are elements of the charged offense that have to all be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in order for conviction to lie. I was asked to comment on effective date. This is a first reading as well as public hearing. Second read, if passed tonight, would be, I believe, September 3rd is our next regular session. And that if passed at that time per charter, all ordinances take effect 5 days after publication following final passage. That's Article 2, Section 6 of the charter. And it would apply prospectively. This sort of ordinance with these sort of penalties do not apply retroactively to the ex post facto prohibition of the Constitution. Just some concluding comments. These are laws of general application. As the majority opinion author wrote in City of Grants Pass decision from June, quote, under the city's laws, it makes no difference whether the charged defendant is homeless, a backpacker on vacation passing through town, or a student who abandons his dorm room to camp out and protest on the lawn of a municipal building. So too here with this proposal, and staff would recommend its passage. Thank you.
Council, I think before proceeding to council discussion, as the mayor, I'd like to make a couple of prefatory comments, primarily for those who are listening, watching, or in the audience tonight. I think there seems to have been some confusion about what the intent of this ordinance is, what we're attempting to get our arms around and grasp. And some people may disagree with my comments relative to the intent of this ordinance, and I understand that and I appreciate it. But I think it's important to say that what we are attempting to do here, and as Mr. Magliaro quoted from the 2023 citizen survey, 47% of our citizens believe and feel that our parks and trails are unsafe. Now, the city ranked very high in most categories, and most of our citizens believed and believe that this is a wonderful city to live in. But it also showed some shortcomings, and one of those was the safety or the perception of the lack of safety in our parks and on our trails. 47% is a big number. We have to deal with that. So what we are attempting to regulate here is not people or groups of people, it is conduct. Now, the people who commit those violations, regardless of what group or groups they may be from or represent, will all be treated the same. This is not aimed, as I said, at any one particular group of people. It is conduct-oriented, and it is to regulate bad conduct. Besides, our PD and our public works department each month are faced with huge cleanup activities within our parks and trails that is a resource drain from a manpower and a financial standpoint to the city. So I know some of you, and I'll just call it like it is, are here because you think this is to regulate homelessness. No, that is not the intent. That is a different issue that we should discuss and we should be aware of. But it is not to be confused with regulating bad conduct in our parks where our citizens feel unsafe. As elected officials, we were elected and we have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. And for us to not be cognizant of the safety issues and concerns in our parks and on our trails, we would not be accepting that responsibility. So that is the message I want to get across. I understand, as I said in the beginning, there will be those who disagree with the context of my comments, but that is the basis. It is conduct-oriented and not group or groups-oriented. And I might ask Mr. Bell if you have anything you'd like to add from an organizational standpoint.
I think you described it really well, that this has nothing to do with particular groups of people. It has to do with the condition of our parks and trails. And we all know, if you've been up and down the river corridor, our police department, our public works department have done a really good job doing the best they can to keep it cleaned up and keep it in an orderly, clean and presentable fashion. But the citizen survey really had high marks, and people talking about the fearful activities down there when they're trying to bike, trying to walk and recreate. We're taking some other efforts in our proposal for next year's budget to add more cameras and some lighting in the underpasses, things like that. But it's really hard to keep up with the remnants of people camping. And so we also have had fires break out as a result of people camping in our park system. It's important to know that our park system follows that river corridor, which has a lot of vegetation. And we live in it's one of the more wetter areas of town, but we're still in a desert climate. And so a lot of fires break out on an annual basis down in that corridor. It's also the corridor where we handle 4th of July fireworks and have big community events where thousands and thousands of people gather. So it's a really important thing for us to be able to make sure that our law enforcement officers have the ability to go out and keep things clean and presentable. Also want to mention that we know from organizations that work in a whole different area, talking about the unhoused population of our community, which isn't anything to do with the ordinance tonight. We are doing some work with mental health co-responders in the police department to better understand the mental health issues that are facing our community. We've done a really good job under Chief Hall and his team the last few years, adding in not one, but a couple different mental health co-responder full-time positions to help with those things. And we provide some support to nonprofits in our community and churches who are helping in those areas. So we're going to continue to do that, and we're welcome to hold more meetings with staff and teams out in the community on how to address those issues, but want to make everybody understand that has nothing to do with what you're considering here tonight.
Thank you. With that, I'll turn to council for questions and comments.
I don't want to be accused of being heartless, but the truth of the matter is I've done a lot to help whenever I can with homeless people. I've offered them work. I've provided them with other services through MATA, and because I'm on the board, and through Shepherd's Hand. And at one time, I had a piece of property that had a house on it that I allowed homeless people to live in, but they abused the privilege. I also had a couple of trailers, not mobile homes, but drivable trailers that were parked in my backyard that I was allowing people to stay in violation of the law. Okay? As a council member, I believe that a lot of these homeless people are homeless because they want to be, and not necessarily because there are things out there that you can do. There are places that you can get help. And so that's just my take on it. I've been helping for many years, and it comes to a point where you just have to say, well, I have to do something. And this is, in my opinion, this is what I'm doing by supporting this ordinance.
I'd like a little clarification also, something that Mr. Magliaro said. Currently, if someone is camping and they get a trespass citation, that it doesn't require a first notice, and it's a $120 fine.
For a first conviction proven beyond a reasonable doubt for trespass, under the typical section, yes, that's true, it's a $120 fine.
And under this ordinance, that they have the opportunity to relocate, they're given a either written or verbal notice, and if they don't comply, then they get a $100 fine.
And that's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There's a civil infraction penalty of a $100 fine, yes.
Thank you.
Part of my concern and my reasons for supporting this is I've had some one-on-one conversation with mostly the Parks Department with Public Works, and they talk to me about what it's like when they have to go in and clean up these areas, and it's very, very unsafe. And I don't, we hire parks workers to work on beautification and maintenance and that type of thing of parks, not to have to go in and put on their hazard suits and their rubber gloves and pick up lots of needles, lots of human feces, the type of things that I don't think that should be a part of their jobs, but it's been required because that's our only way to handle it. I would like to stop it from happening.
Thank you. Any further comments, council? If not, because this is the first reading of the ordinance, we're required to hold a public hearing. I will open the hearing and accept public comment. Okay, we're gonna start and go this way, please, ma'am, and I will start with this gentleman over here, and then I will come to you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Richard Rogers. I live at 800 North 5th Street. I also walk my dog in Lions Park, and I see homeless people occasionally. I am not speaking against this proposed ordinance, but what I would encourage the council to consider a more concerted effort of treating the cause, not just the symptom. These folks, in my opinion...
Please, no applause. Thank you.
Homelessness or the unhoused population, I don't believe is a choice. I think conditions, especially the economic conditions of the last 20 years, have created this issue. How cities deal with it is very complicated, but I feel that this ordinance only addresses a symptom of a broader issue. And I would suggest that the council put its weight behind some kind of effort. I don't know if it's been done before, a study. What are the resources for homeless individuals? What is the approximate population seasonally of homeless individuals? Where do they concentrate? How do you deal with the cause of all those things you're trying to address? The cleanliness, safety. This ordinance does not actually address the cause, it addresses a symptom. I'm concerned also about taking a person who has no resources, no home, charge them with a fine, charge them with jail time, to me is reminiscent of the debtors' prisons of the 1700s. Yes, we need to clean up our city. Yes, the parks need to be safer, but you should consider the cause, not just treat this one symptom. You can pass this and say, yes, we've done a good thing. I agree, it needs work, but you also need to consider the cause and what is being done. When I drive past City Market and see the folks panhandling on the street, I keep thinking, there are resources for these individuals. Why aren't they, do we have anyone who goes around talking to people? This is where we can get you help,
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I applaud the city manager's comments about, and Chief Hall's social work direction to working with individuals who need help. But I think violation of this ordinance, first offense should be referral. Second offense should be considered something else. But people that don't have resources, you throw them in jail. You're not doing anybody any good. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, I appreciate the fact that you appreciate what the gentleman had to say, but it's really not appropriate to clap or boo, for that matter, in this public meeting. So I'd appreciate it if you'd refrain from doing that, even though I know you appreciate his comments. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Connie Pittenger, and my point of reference is River Bottom Park. And I think that the survey that was done should have been more specific in why people don't think it's safe. I walk my dogs currently right now at 6 o'clock in the morning. Oftentimes it's dark, and I feel perfectly safe down there. And I walk the trail going south along the river at past Oak Grove. So I'm not sure what they were referring to, that things are not safe. Except when, the other gentleman that spoke about the bicycle riders, that's not safe when they come up behind you and don't even bother to tell you that they're there and almost run you over, and it's dark. So that's not safe. But other than that, I feel perfectly safe walking them. And I would agree with the gentleman who spoke before me because, right, we have been denying that we have homelessness in Montrose for over 20 years. And I think that we're not dealing with what is the root problem. And I really have concerns that these people, the rain that we've had for the last 2 weeks, they're out there getting soaked at night. And I know that, I do see them down at the park, and they huddle underneath the shelter of the bathrooms because they can't go in because the doors get locked. So I really think that we need to work on the bigger issue here rather than this, because we're discounting these citizens. If this is the year of the citizen, we need to think about these citizens, these people. And I really think that we need to focus on what the issue is. And so I just have some real concerns about what this is. And just to make a couple of comments on in your interview, Mr. Mayor, that you said that this is the best that we can do. I think this is far from the best that we can do. This new ordinance is pathetic in my opinion. And it is being targeted. If it's targeted as a condition, there should be other plans out here on the table. How about some housing for these people from April through October? Why are they camping in the parks? Because there's no place else for them to go, okay? And so anyway, and my last little comment before my time runs out is that in doing my research to find this information, I think your website needs to be updated and made much more user-friendly, because I ended up having to call the City Hall, and Lisa Del Picchio sent me this so that I could actually read this and be prepared for tonight. So anyway, you might want to work on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be next, sir, after this gentleman.
My name is Stephen Fessler, and I reside at 641 South 12th Street. Since December 4th until Friday, I was homeless. I camped. What are you going to do? There is resources. However, it took me 6 months to get the resources to where I was able to finally get an apartment. This camping ban, no matter how you want to dress it up, it's homeless. That's who you're targeting. It is a strictly targeted group of people that this is going to have an effect upon. There's got to be other resources available, whether it is a 24/7 shelter. There is a wintertime emergency shelter, but it does not have the capacity to have even a quarter of the homeless population in Montrose. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. The gentleman in the back. back there. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is legally Robert Kelly, but most of the people that are standing behind me might know me as Sam Astor. I have been homeless in Montrose for the last year and a half, and I think that the people that I have associated myself with would say that I present no harm to this community. And I think that is something that we need to apply to many individuals, is that unless we have the evidence to prove that they are a harm, then we shouldn't create a law that generalizes them as harmful. If this ordinance passes, then it's going to take individuals like me that respect the law and turn them into criminals. There's people behind me that I volunteer with on a weekly or monthly basis, from the United Methodist Church to Shepherd's Hand. And I think that they can attest that many of the people that they have served from the unhoused community have done nothing to warrant a ban against their style of living, which isn't a choice at all. I don't think anybody would choose to be in 90-degree heat during the middle of the day, or that they would choose to be in the rain. I don't think anybody chooses to have an addiction. But I think that everybody that sits in front of me right now has the ability to make a choice to refer people to the services that can lift them out of the situations they're in. Or you can make the decision to lock them up and fine them when they don't even have the availability to pay for those fines. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back to you, finish these people over here, and then I'll come back to you. The gentleman, I saw a hand, there was one more, yeah, way in the back there, and then, ma'am, I'll take you with your hand up, and then I'll get the two of you over here.
Hello, my name is Jamie Carl. I am a fifth-generation local from my family in this town. My grandfather was a rancher, farmer, sheep herder. My Uncle Bobby worked for the police department for 32 years here. He retired and became a city council member. Long-standing in this community, my family. However, they're all dead. And I came back here in 2021, ended up with an infection and lost my lower left leg. My sister died and I became homeless. And I've been homeless here in my community for the last 3 years. 2 of them I've done without a leg. The first winter I did in a wheelchair, trying to get around town, trying to get to Shepherd's Hand, to get to heat, food, and stuff. I had no resources, I had no family, no support. I was waiting for Social Security, which took 1.5 years, and I had no housing, and a lot of times, for me, because there is the bad people, that I call them the zombies, that run around at night, and it is dangerous. I felt safer sleeping in an alley or on a public parking lot, because at least, somebody would see me, because I'm 52 years old and without a leg, trying to survive, and I just, if it weren't for Shepherd's Hand and the Methodist Church, I don't think I would be here, to be honest with you. I'm currently working with vocational rehab to become a resource coordinator for Shepherd's Hand. I recently found out last week that I have been approved for apartment, but it's been 2 years in my community, and I had no resources, no support. And I'm not one that's going to go out and fly a sign, because I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to. I was born here, raised here. I gave birth to 4 children here, and I would like my children to be able to come back and feel as a part of the community. I think there's a lot more that we could do for the homeless, because not everybody are travelers or the zombies, whatever. A lot of us really need help. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I just hope that we could team together and try and find resources for these people. Because a lot of them, the cops don't they don't give them resources. I was staying at the Black Canyon Motel one time, and someone was trying to break into my room, and I called the police, and there were two sitting outside my window, and they were talking.
30
and
seconds,
the third
ma'am.
one walked up and said, "Is that the GIMP in there?" And this is my town. These are my officers, and they're calling me a GIMP. You know, and forget who I am or had a name. I wasn't a person. I was just a GIMP. And I really hope we can see some changes for all of us and for our children, my children. You know, I don't want them to have to go through what I've gone through. I don't want anybody to. It's not easy. You know, and God's given me another chance by
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next one back, ma'am. Yes.
I'd like to start off by addressing the fact that the idea that anyone would choose to be homeless is an incredibly offensive thing to say. As a child, both of my parents lost their jobs around the same time, and if not for a family friend, my family would have been homeless. Both of my parents, my younger sister, and myself, who at the time was age 8. I have dear friends who have been homeless as children. Being homeless is not a choice. No one wants that. No one is choosing that. The council has talked a lot about intent with this legislation and about the perception of the community. Neither intent nor perception are reality. I'm a lawyer. I work with criminal defendants, and I can tell you that the intent behind legislation rarely actually makes its way into the way in which it is implemented. If there is a way for folks to be arrested, they will be arrested. If there is a way for folks to be fined, they will be fined. No one is going to stop and ask someone, well, you know, are you homeless? Are you doing this by choice? What's going on? What do you need? The people are going to get fined. People are going to get arrested. Intent doesn't matter. We make laws and make behavior illegal to discourage it. We don't need to discourage homelessness. No one's doing it by choice. That's not what's happening. So rather than sort of rehash some of the things that the folks before me have said much better, I want to talk about the cost of something like this. A $100 fine. These folks are homeless. None of them are going to pay a $100 fine, so we're not bringing any money from that. We're not going to get $100 off a single person who's arrested for being homeless. However, if there's a mandatory 10 days in jail for everyone on a second offense, that's going to cost us money. That's going to cost the taxpayers money. I couldn't find any specific statistics on Montrose Jail, but a 2023 study about jails in the United States said that on average, it can cost $85 to $150 to house a person in jail per night. That's more conservative. It's also feasible that it can cost around $200. I'm assuming we don't have numbers on how much it's going to cost us to house someone in the Montrose County Jail. So we'll stick with $85 to $150. So we're talking about on every second offense spending $850 to $1,500 per person per second violation. That's money that could be going towards resources. That's money that could be going towards getting people on their feet, towards more affordable housing. Affordable housing is clearly an issue because it's already been brought up at this meeting. So we can put those resources towards affordable housing.
30 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. Finally, the penalty for any misdemeanor in Colorado is 0 to 364 days in jail. That's a maximum, 364 days in jail. The minimum is 0. Making it a mandatory 10 days in jail means that the minimum fine on this is more serious than assault, is more serious than misdemeanors in this state, which is absurd. So call it what you will. This is criminalizing homelessness, and I am against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, right here, and then I'll come back to you just behind her. There's two more of you back over here. You know, would you do me a favor, those of you who still want to make comments, would you mind coming up to this first row, and we'll just take you as you proceed in order. And then I'll come, when you guys are finished, I'll come back over here. And I will ask all of you that are going to make comments to remember that I asked early on, if someone has made the comment that you are intending to make, please just say that you agree unless you have something additional to add to it. So with that, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Lexi Farkash, and I'm a very proud resident of Montrose. And I'm very against this ordinance, but I want to talk about our discomfort with homelessness, because I'm sure many of us have felt it. You walk past someone in a park, they're visibly a little disheveled, maybe you think they have some mental health problems, and you either keep going, you walk a little faster and you put it out of your head, you pass by the person who's asking for money on the side of the road outside of City Market, and you put it outside of your head. You think, gonna grab my kid a little tighter and just get past it. And that discomfort comes from thinking that we are separate from them, that must be a choice. But it's not a choice, as you've heard ad nauseum at this point. But it remains to be said that it is not a choice because those people, they would not choose to be exposed to the elements and to the cruelty of their fellow citizens. And as city council members and mayor, you represent those people just as much as you represent the people who are in housing. And I want to talk about who you will be criminalizing, because you owe us more than to say you are not criminalizing homelessness. You owe us more than the Supreme Court did by saying you're criminalizing conduct and not people. So be able to look us in the eyes and be honest about what this is doing. Because you will be criminalizing disabled people. 25% of homeless people are disabled. You will be criminalizing children fleeing abusive families, single mothers escaping domestic violence. Between 25 to 57% of homeless women report that domestic violence was the reason that they became homeless. And you're also going to be criminalizing veterans who are at a significantly higher risk of being homeless than the average civilian. And the VA, their website talks about many different ways that we can address that and provide resources. At no point does their website suggest criminalizing the conduct of homelessness. Instead, it suggests connecting homeless and at-risk veterans with housing solutions, healthcare, community employment services, and other support, which is what the money that the previous speaker just talked about should be going towards instead of funding those people in jail.
30 seconds, ma'am.
And I want to leave us with a quote from Nelson Mandela. Our human compassion binds us, one another to another, not in pity or patronizingly, but as human beings who have learned how to turn our common suffering into hope for the future. I implore you to not pass this resolution.
Thank you.
Hello. The updates to city ordinance.
Would you state your name, please?
What's that?
Would you state your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jennifer Jones, and I'm a social worker here in Montrose. The updates to City Ordinance 2670 is an affirmative response to the 2024 U.S. Supreme Court ruling of City of Grants Pass. This ruling does not criminalize the mere status of an unhoused individual, i.e. the fact that a person is unhoused. It does, however, criminalize the actions and conduct of people that are often unhoused by ways of fines and incarceration. Such actions and conduct by an unhoused person, namely that of staying close to town, are often necessary to survive outdoors when there is nowhere else to live and in the absence of viable alternatives, including homeless shelters with adequate space and affordable housing. Practices like those being proposed today push unhoused people out, as in physically out. This has the ancillary effect of pushing unhoused people away from ready and immediate access to water, food, emergency and other medical care, medications, mental health management and treatment, crisis support, and trusted social support, all of which are essential basic determinants required for life, safety, and health. Practices like these push unhoused persons into increasingly isolated, remote, and hazardous locations that are out of reach from the necessities required not only for living, but especially so for living outdoors. Unhoused individuals are holders of rights, and this includes the right to life-preserving actions and safety, and to self-determination and agency, which includes having a consensual process and say-so in what happens to them as a person and in the decisions that directly affect them as a person. The right to life and the manifestations of liberty are meant to be intrinsic and inalienable and not dependent on an individual's income and access to shelter. Rights that are implicitly dependent on stipulations are open to further cultural interpretive measures, amenability, and changeability. The placement of such stipulations on rights suggests, perhaps contentiously, that rights are bought. The majority of unhoused individuals in Montrose are from Montrose. They are our people with our rights, including the rights to life and
30
safety.
seconds, ma'am.
Montrose doesn't have to follow the example of the Supreme Court and the state, nor is it legally obligated to enact the revisions to this ordinance. Montrose can instead take a proactive, effective, and human-centered approach that is tailored to our region and our governance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Neil Platzer. I live at 2849 Lost Creek Road North. I just want to address the survey that was done on this. Number one, it reminds me of we're going to be a non-sanctuary city and county, and all the stuff that came out. You go outside of Montrose, all you're going to see is homes where people, the wives have been raped, the kids have been killed, the husband's head's been bashed in. I hike 5 times a week, either walking in town or out on public land, usually 3 days a week. I've never even seen the immigrants out there where I usually see no one. And the same thing about park safety. It doesn't sound like it was a very thorough study. When I go 2 times a week, many times it's in the parks, I've never felt threatened. And I usually go off trail. There's these little off trails that I go on. Never felt any discomfort. And as far as needles and human feces, you go on Sims Mesa, citizens of Montrose go out there and dump the same kind of stuff all over on Sims Mesa. You talk to BLM, they said, don't go clean it up because we have to go out there in suits and test it. It's not just homeless people or people out in our parks. And you go out on Uncompahgre Plateau or Dave Wood and you see the same thing, hunters leaving all kinds of trash. It's not just homeless people in our parks. So I think you should take a really serious look at the root issue that was talked about. I agree with that. How can we don't have to jump on board with what a lot of states and cities are doing. I think there's a big need out there, and with 59 churches or whatever we have in Montrose and a good city and county, I think we can address this issue in a better way than just saying, here's the hammer. And with all these churches, I also recommend that every councilman read Matthew 25, verses 35 to 46, where Jesus says, welcome the stranger, feed the stranger, clothe the stranger, visit them. If they do get locked up, go see them. And if you don't, God's going to be very
30
mad.
seconds, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Corey Zaplatel, and I work and ride my bike and spend a lot of time in the city of Montrose and live in the county. I am against this proposed amendment to the municipal ordinance. And I just want to take a minute to reflect on the conversation that we're having today, and not just the comments of the public, of myself and the others who have spoken, but even before the floor was turned over to the public, and you all were having a discussion, which is important, and you should. We can say that we're talking about conduct and not individuals, but the topic of the conversation went immediately to people experiencing homelessness. We cannot pretend that we are talking about just conduct and not individuals. We all recognize that this is an issue and a concern for the citizens of our city. My concerns lie with this. I understand the goal of this modification has been stated, but we haven't heard anything about what research has gone into supporting that this modification actually will accomplish that goal. I won't repeat the concerns about the financial considerations, but I would echo those. And one of my concerns is that we're being asked to govern based on perception and not actual numbers. The survey that we've been talking about, first of all, the question was whether you feel that the parks are safe. And of course, we want our citizens to feel that the parks are safe. But that is absolutely subjective and not tied to actual numbers in terms of actual safety, in terms of charges, trespassing, things like that. So I hope that when you all are talking about this, that your conversation will be about actual crime statistics and not simply perception. And I heard the statistic of 47% repeated, but what I heard was that it was 47% of 400 people, not our whole town. So I think that we have to just keep those numbers in perspective. And then I know my time is running short, but I just have to emphatically object to the portion of this that requires
30 seconds,
mandatory
please.
jail. Thank you. We're talking about going from a fine to mandatory jail. The court does not have discretion. And I see and hear nothing that justifies making that kind of jump. And I would just reiterate that in the state law, very few lower level offenses carry mandatory jail time. And so I don't see how that solves the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Pierce, 1100 Ramanucci, Montrose, the last almost 6 years. And my heart goes out to a homeless person whenever I see one. And when I lived in Delta County, which was 33 years prior to coming here, I helped out at the homeless center there. And I think we can all sort of agree Delta's a pretty conservative place, but the churches, every single night of the week at the homeless shelter, one church or the other made a meal for the homeless that came in that evening. And I would sit, my job was just to sort of oversight, never was there a problem. But I would sit elbow to elbow breaking bread, hearing their stories, and never did I feel they chose it. Some circumstance that interrupted their life flow brought them there. So coming to Montrose, one of my happy things to do is go to the library. And I am grateful, and it makes me feel good about Montrose when I see the openness supplied and applied towards the homeless people. At least they appear to be so, that are able to utilize that space, feel safe themselves. I think they feel equal and whole. So it's sort of a perception of one of the reasons I like Montrose is that exact thing. And you're sort of referring to your survey as being your focal point of making this ordinance, but I don't see that it was pinpointed in the survey that homeless people are making us feel unsafe. So to use that as your talking point doesn't ring true to me altogether. And I just hope testimonies you've heard here, and there's a lot of logic behind a lot of what people are saying, and I do agree with the first gentleman who mentioned, let's find the prevention. What's the workaround so people don't end up in so dire? And the ones sitting around me back there were muttering, it takes months, if not years, to make your way through the system.
30 seconds, ma'am.
I can stop now, but thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. My name is Kirsten Atkins, and I live in the county. I do not live in the city. I haven't lived here a long time. I lived up in the mountains where it was too cold to have a lot of unhoused people. But I am here representing myself. I do work with a number of resource providers, and I work for a statewide organization that helps capacity build. I am not here representing my organization, but just as a citizen. But I do work up and down the Western Slope in Grand Junction. I work up in the North Fork Valley in Delta. I work in Montrose here with partners here, as well as to the south as far as Norwood, and kind of all over. I'm kind of all over the place. So I work with a lot of people that are unhoused, unsheltered, super low income folks, and I've gotten to observe and be part of some solutions that I see that I feel like perhaps you all are not considering. I'm going to apologize. I'm probably jumping around a little bit because I didn't actually see the ordinance until I was sitting in the audience, and I got it from the guy next door, and I didn't hear about what was happening here until last night. So excuse me if I'm jumping around. I did hear, first off, I think this is short-sighted and not a solution. I think it's, y'all are going to wipe people out of the parks and overnight from all their encampments, and there's no solution. It's not like those folks are going to disappear. I heard, Mayor, you used the language of bad conduct. And so we're not punishing people who are unhoused, but we're punishing the bad conduct. I am privileged enough that I am going to drive in my car that has gas, and I'm going to go to my home tonight, and my husband is cooking me dinner, and I'm going to eat, and I'm going to sleep in my bed, and I'm going to take a shower in the morning if I so choose to, and use the toilet. Not everybody has that privilege. So I'm speaking to you from a place of privilege. And all of us in this room, or all of us sitting in front of me, I'm going to make an assumption that you all maintain that level of privilege as well. Not everybody in this room is going to be able to do that tonight. So when we're talking about bad conduct, we are actually focusing on people that are unhoused and
30
unsheltered.
seconds, ma'am.
I think there are solutions. I don't know if I heard somebody talk about Grand Junction. I don't know if y'all have been to the resource center up there. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but it is helping right now. It is access to resources. It's centrally located. So there are things that you can do. There's people in this room that you could get together with. I heard lawyers. I hear faith-based people. I hear people who are unhoused and unsheltered who know more about that than anyone else.
Excuse me, ma'am. Your
So
time
I
is
just
up.
want to suggest before you go ahead and do this with no solutions.
Ma'am, you're going to have to wrap up.
Yep. Before you do this with no solutions, these folks right here are your resource
Thank
for
you.
that. And please get together with them before you put
Thank
them
you.
out. Before you put them in jail. Thank you.
Greetings, City Council. My name is Claire House. I'm a therapist and a licensed social worker, and I grew up here in Montrose. I've been serving unhoused clientele professionally for 23 years in San Francisco, Denver, and in Montrose, focusing on service around housing and mental health needs. I have also worked with each of these cities on different solutions for neighborhoods when camping bans were proposed. One thing I've observed is that when policies like camping bans come into effect, they are often because of a small number of chronically mentally ill individuals who are not receiving effective services. Instead of addressing the specific needs of these individuals, the law passed focuses on sleeping. I have not seen this law help to address mental health challenges or housing issues for these individuals. I've seen it decrease the amount of sleep my already exhausted clients are receiving and increase anxiety and stress, decreasing health, safety, and welfare for my unhoused clients. I've also not seen this decrease police calls. In 23 years in the field, there are 3 groups I've observed who are most negatively impacted by these laws passing. Jails, as they get an influx of inmates with sleeping crimes, which is expensive, we've talked about. Police and co-responders, who are now asked to enforce the law and told how much of their time it takes up, which is not what I want our police to spend their precious time on. Perhaps the most difficult impact is on the many unhoused individuals who are not creating a problem, the ones who are cleaning up trash and being respectful and just trying to survive. My clients who are fleeing domestic abuse, or my client who lost his job and is working hard at fast food but hasn't made enough to get into a place yet. Or my client with a bad rental history because of their ex. I've had conversations with police and tearful co-responders across the nation struggling when they pull up to enforce the camping ban and tell someone they can't sleep here, and the unhoused person asks where to go. The police pull out the resource sheet with a heavy heart, already knowing there is nowhere open tonight. Maybe because it's too late, intake is closed, because they have a partner, or in case of Montrose, because there isn't a year-round shelter, even though there have been many agencies and individuals offering proposals on building and running shelters, but there hasn't been a site permitted. So the person packs up and walks a few blocks away and plops down again, hoping to get some sleep. I've seen this enforcement impact the relationship that the police and the co-responders are able to have with unhoused individuals who are struggling, and their ability effectively to do their job. It practically often only shifts the unhoused folks' location by a couple blocks. I've also seen increase in criminal and concerning behavior when the camping ban's
30 seconds,
enforcement
ma'am.
increases due to client survival needs. For example, your camping gear got taken in a sweep, so you break into a car to sleep or stay warm, or you were asked to move 3 times last night by the police, so you didn't get sleep, which exacerbated a manic episode that escalated anxiety, ending in a police call. In my experience, I have seen many creative and effective solutions for these issues we're hearing: littering, harassment, noise, park safety conduct, which there are already laws against, and I would be happy to consult on this. I believe Montrose can set up an excellent program.
Thank you for your comments. Your time's up.
I don't think we need to make sleeping a crime. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abby Brewer, and I've been here, actually I graduated high school in 1997, so here in Montrose. I've been here for quite some time. I'm here really as a citizen. I'm also the executive director for Shepherd's Hand here in Montrose, and have been doing that for the last year. At about 2019, I kind of started my career in kind of the housing and helped with the housing action plan in Montrose and developed a rapid rehousing program. One of the things that I just want to let you know, and people have already said this, is we just don't have enough resources when it comes to individuals that are experiencing homelessness. I know this is not to ban homelessness, and I know that you guys are doing the best that you can to help with safety in our community. But we have to address this issue too, because at Shepherd's Hand, the only thing that we can do right now is hand them a sleeping bag and tell them to go sleep in a park. And I don't want to be, and I think my volunteers and everybody else, because we don't have any other options, and that is the only option. I think it's going to take all of us. The capacity of our organization has doubled since I've been there. We were serving 30 in October of last year. We're serving nearly 65 for lunch. It's getting worse and worse. And right now, with the coordinated entry system, we see about 220 homeless individuals on a daily basis here in Montrose community. And again, that has doubled since 2020. So I just want to put that on you guys' plate too, of like, we do have a challenge that we need to work together. And I think, Ann and several others are, we have this unhoused coalition that we're starting, but really band together, work together to really solve the solution, because we don't want more people going into the jails. And we need to come up with something together. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Patrick Crane. I live in the city. I've been here for 12 years. I'm also an attorney in town. I've represented people who can't afford attorneys who are charged with crimes for the last 12 years here. When, I guess, starting here, we heard that this was some sort of mandate because 47% of our population said they don't feel safe. First off, and I know someone else broke those numbers down a little bit, but if we're talking about 47% of around 400 people, we're under 200 people. Our city is over 20,000. So we are under 1% of our population. That is not a mandate. That is far from a mandate. If you want to know what the actual population believes, put out something that is actually asking the question. What you got back was a general, I don't feel safe, with no specifics. What we're sitting here talking about isn't anything more than fear-mongering based on that sort of idea, without asking, why doesn't someone feel safe? What actual crimes of violence or risk of actual safety concerns are happening in the park? Because I have heard zero from anyone or any evidence that any of that is happening. As someone who has represented people in this town for 12 years, I can tell you there's no rash of offenses happening in the parks that are coming in to my office. There are not a rash of offenses coming out of the parks of violent acts coming into the state courts. And if there were violent offenses, those would be coming into the state courts. They're not there because they're not happening. That is a different thing than what City Manager Bell is talking about when he's talking about resources. If the issue is resources, then we should be talking about this as resources. A number of people in here have talked about who helps the population, the unhoused population who you are addressing with this. Not a single person has mentioned a single resource that comes from the city, because it doesn't. It is all
30 seconds,
churches
sir.
and private organizations who are doing it. The last thing I would come to is Mr. Magliaro started by talking about the law that has been in effect. It is already illegal to be in the park from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Why put this law into effect? The only meaningful difference is that you are mandating 10 days of jail after a second offense with giving no solution. The only reason to do this is to jail people who don't have
Thank you
a
for your
home.
comments.
And you need to be able to say that out loud to people, to their face, if you're going to try and do it.
Hello, Council. My name is Lynette Wallace, and I have been an advocate for the homeless for 30 years, and I would like to tell you my personal story. First time I was homeless for 7 years in Tucson, Arizona. I'm actually a fifth-generation Montrosian. The second time I was homeless for about 2 years. And this time, I was homeless for 3 years. I just got into an RV park in my motorhome last month. And I didn't pay for it. It was only through resources that I have, personal friends that helped me out. And then this month, the church has paid for it. I'm out of resources now. I was, excuse me, I was in a domestic violent relationship. The only way I could escape that relationship was go out on the street for the last 3 years. I managed to move up in better motorhomes, 3 motorhomes over 3 years. I finally have one that runs now and is fully self-contained. And that's only through the grace of God that I was able to do that on my own. All I get a month is A&D, which is only $248 a month. That's not enough for anybody to live on. I'm disabled. This started 3 years before I became homeless because I left my ex out of a domestic violence relationship and fled. And he still lives in town, so I run into him once in a while. He still harasses me. I did not choose to be homeless any of the 3 times I've been homeless. I was a missionary kid, so I grew up poor. I don't have a lot of resources, but I am educated. I am not your typical homeless person. I am very educated, and I've been trying for 30 years. I've been an advocate for 30 years. I tried to get a homeless center started here 30 years ago. I've been before this council before, not the same council, but I have been before the city council. I've been an advocate for the city. I've been a city, on the city board for the county. And I would just like you guys to not try to come up with better solutions. This is not a solution. And this is just punishes homeless people for being homeless when they're not choosing to be there. That's the only choice they have, and you're criminalizing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Drew Granzo. Excuse me. I'm the president of the Association of Montrose Churches. I'm an elder at Celebration Church and a businessman here in town. I've been here for about 11 years, 12 years, something of that nature. I don't have a lot to add to what these people said. I think what they said was good. I think I would encourage this council to take a step back from this, to table this for a moment, and think about what has already been said. We need to come up with a way to make solutions. I think there are unintended consequences to this that will be bigger issues for this council if you guys don't take a second step back. So I just would appeal to you to table this. There's a lot of private folks, many of the churches would be willing to help come up with a solution, and I think we need to have private and government, city working together on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Samuel Leckerman. I'm a resident of Montrose, Colorado. Thank you for your dedication to our city. I really appreciate the work that you put in. It's cool to see people with such conviction sit here in front of us, so thank you. I want to apologize for my facial expressions throughout this night. They usually speak before I have time to filter them out. So if you see me make weird faces, that's what's happening. A lot of people who are much more eloquent and who are much more qualified than myself have gone before me, have stated some pretty interesting things that I agree with, actually, all of them. I have 2 points that came to my mind while I was sitting and listening to everyone. The first one was about a recent ordinance that we passed about the sanctuary city ban. I believe some of the language used either in that ordinance or in the press release referred to focusing on veterans who are experiencing homelessness. So I find it interesting that we're now making such a hard pivot towards incriminating the act of sleeping outside, which directly affects veterans who are experiencing homelessness. Another thing, as a citizen of the United States and a taxpayer, I would highly appreciate if my tax money went towards resources to help people rather than towards resources to kick people out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. So clearly I was not here at the beginning of this. I was watching you guys online and then I got fired up and had to come in. So my name is Chelsea Meese. I have spent the last 15 years of my career working in homeless initiatives, 8 of those throughout different communities in rural Colorado. I got off a Trinidad Unhoused Coalition call this afternoon. I work currently for the Center for Policy Research and the Colorado Rural Collaborative for Runaway and Homeless Youth. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to rural homelessness, and this is your slippery slope if you allow it to be. This will be the thing that defines what happens to the 200 constituents that you do take responsibility for if this is what goes forward. And when you, Mr. Matthew Maglario, when you want to mention statistics from urban areas to represent rural communities, that is not in alignment. There's the difference between rural resort, and urban areas in Colorado's balance of state. There are different areas and different practices that work specifically within rural Colorado. I'm here to offer my help, my assistance, because I am in the process of moving here. So, with that being said, I just want to echo what these individuals have said and let you know about what these intentions and those actual byproducts look like. The unintended consequences. So when you are talking about safety in your parks right now being taken over and your Parks and Rec individuals having to clean up after them, you are now placing the responsibility on your law enforcement or your code officers to now take a handle of that. Once you are giving them fines, putting them in jail, you are perpetuating this cycle of poverty and homelessness that is already tremendously difficult to get out of, okay? So you're making this situation harder for what seems like no reason, because it sounds like your people already say that your parks are pretty safe, and there are other safety measures that can be taken in order to make your parks safer. So I would just ask you to not make fear-based decisions, to not make a careless choice, and to actually choose change, because if you want to have this change happen, I'm here, I'm willing to sign up. I know there are a few other people back here that are too, that we can create a continuum of care for Montrose County and actually end this issue versus just allowing us to make laws or put in different code enforcements to make the cycle worse for these individuals that are currently experiencing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sandy Cave. I have lived in Montrose since the late 70s, worked here as a school counselor for the school district. And I've had the privilege to get to know one of our homeless citizens, to help him out in tough situations. I helped him by rescuing him from a total mudslide where he was camping outside the city. And his tent collapsed. It was in the rains that we had in June. Maybe we've forgotten, we had those rains too. And he needed a place. And I couldn't just leave him in all the mud and with a collapsed tent. And so I invited him into my home. I knew him from working at Shepherd's Hand, from becoming acquainted with him, having conversations with him. I knew him from being a part of my church. He attended my church. He was very open about what his situation was. And this was one of the best experiences of my life, to sit and listen to an individual who, unfortunately, there's a stereotype about, and I think that's part of what we're dealing with here, is we're looking at the stereotype rather than the individuals. We're treating them as if they were one kind of person, and they're individual persons, and they have individual situations. I know at one time I've been on the fringes of homelessness and trying to come up with an answer for several years, and I know at one time there were some things happening. There were some committees or whatever that got together. We were going to solve this problem. I don't know what happened to that. It went away, and I just tried to become part of the solution by helping at Shepherd's Hand. So I agree that you need to step back. You need to take a look at these people as individuals, not as our stereotype of what a homeless person is. And everyone in our community should be taking part in helping these individuals and becoming familiar with these individuals, because they are people and they have hearts, and we need to have a heart for them as part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Holy cow. Are you about over this? My name is Mary Vader. I'm a generic pediatrician and child abuse specialist, and I'm representing Evan Howard, who instead of coming here chose to go see a brand new grandbaby. I can't even imagine doing that. Yeah. Anyway, I don't have anything more to say than these people, but I do have handouts to present to you that Evan has put together, including some resources and potential partial source solutions, which I think probably are more important than anything else. And I'll leave them with you.
Would you leave those with the city clerk, please, ma'am?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to comment? If not, I will close public comment and turn it back to council for any further discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I hear these people saying what they're saying, and I understand. But I have one question for the chief of police. Is there an ordinance against camping in your backyard? If not, I would ask you folks to do what I did many years ago, to let your yard be used to house one of these homeless persons. Take the bull by the horn. Don't just say, oh yeah, I want to help him, get him out of jail, or represent him, or preach to him. Show your love. Open your door like I did. And then maybe something will be done. Volunteer at Shepherd's Hand. I know I've been there, and I volunteer there. My wife does too. We not only serve the homeless, but we also serve the people that can't come down and get food. Meals on Wheels. They can use people. Volunteer. You want to volunteer? Talk to Region 10. They have services over there. You want to help? Go over to Shepherd's Hand. Talk to that lady. She's a good lady. I know. I've known her for years. I know the person that started Shepherd's Hand. You know, don't just talk with words. Get out there and help. Invite them people over to your backyards and provide them with the meals. Let them shower in your shower. Let them use your home. Don't just sit there and come to us and say, Cindy, you don't do nothing for these people. You know what? Our city donates money to a lot of different charities in this community as part of our budget. The city manager can attest to that. So we're not heartless up here. We're just doing what a bunch of our constituents have been asking us to do. Not just represent you, but we have thousands of people that live in this city that have families too.
Where?
What can I say?
Where are they? Where are they supporting?
I'm sorry, we can't have dialogue back and forth. I'm not going to prohibit that. So
He's dialoguing us.
That's all I have to say. Volunteer. Help.
We do.
What do you call this?
I will ask the police chief to escort you out of this room if I hear one more outburst. That is not what this meeting is about, and it is totally unacceptable behavior on your part, and it will not be tolerated.
Mr. Mayor, I have, my question is never answered by the chief. Do we have an ordinance that prohibits people from allowing camping in their backyard?
If the chief can answer your question.
Sure, Councilmember Ulibarri. So if you have permission to camp in the backyard, then you can camp in the backyard. However, if it causes a public safety issue, if there are other issues as a result of, let's say, long-term camping in the backyard, that could be a concern.
Yes, sir.
For only 10 days.
I'd like to point out, this is the first reading of this. You've given us a lot of information to think about. So in 2 weeks, we will have a second reading. So it does give us an opportunity to come back and relook at some of this before we go forward with it and finalize it.
One thing I will admit concerns me is 610 or 6110E, and something that has been addressed here a number of times is the wording is the court does not have discretion to suspend imposition of the mandatory minimum period of incarceration under this section. And that does cause me some trepidation. I think that, as has been pointed out, that there are a number of other misdemeanors involving far more serious conduct, that it is not a mandatory sentence. I would like to see if there's something we can do about that. And I'm going to ask Mr. Magliaro, so is that something that we can modify, change?
Council sets policy in this area if they want to have that.
Your microphone.
City engineer, folks. Council sets policy in this area. If the council wants to direct that language removed, it can do so.
Is that mandatory provision contained in any of our other ordinances?
Yes. There is a mandatory minimum in our code in the trespass rewrite in 2020. It's 6111A9, if I recall correctly. It was the consolidation of window peeping into the trespass ordinance that does carry a mandatory minimum for an adult.
Ms. Biles, anything further? Okay. Just to expand a little bit on what our council member over here, Mr. Glassbell, said, Anytime that the council considers an ordinance, it is required to have 2 readings for passage. There's the first reading, which is, as he said, where we are tonight. In 2 weeks, we will come back with second reading should it pass tonight. So you will have an opportunity to comment again on the second reading if you choose to do so. And you are certainly free to send your comments into council over the course of the next 2 weeks if the council were to choose to adopt this on first reading tonight. So just want to make sure everybody understands that you will have another opportunity to speak to this issue.
Can it be tabled like that other?
Ma'am, we just can't have dialogue going back and forth, okay? That, we do have to keep, I'm sorry, but we have process and procedure that we do have to follow and not let things get out of hand. So I apologize, but it's up to council as to how they wish to treat this. But thank you for your question. Further discussion?
I would like to have some deeper discussions concerning that imposition of a mandatory sentence. And I think the best way for us to do that is to either vote it down tonight and then come back with it, or table it and come back with a little bit better discussion of some of the penalties and applicability of some of those penalties. And I would like comment from council or thoughts on that. I wouldn't mind tabling this because we're not in a big rush to pass this.
I can support the tabling.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we table this until after we have.
Before you do that, let me just see if Councilwoman Fowles has any comments.
No, I don't. I'm looking in your eyes, and I'm seeing we're ready to go on this.
So go ahead and make your motion, Council.
I make a motion, we table this until the next council meeting.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to table this. Let me ask the city attorney if this is an appropriate procedure.
Yeah, so you're certainly able to continue this out just as you did with the resolution earlier. My question would be, would you like this before work session so that we can discuss this at length? Or would you like this at the next council meeting?
If we are going to table it, the purpose for tabling it, as I understand from my fellow council members, would be to have further discussion on it. So I would suggest that it would be appropriate to have it as scheduled as a work session agenda item for a discussion before it comes back to council.
Of course.
And if I may point out a procedural, that our electronic vote for this is to pass this, and I would like to modify that vote for the current item to reflect the motion for tabling.
Mr. Mayor,
It's showing on our computer or something.
It says table.
They're sitting right up here.
I see that, but I also see where it says vote for current item.
Let's do this so that there's absolutely no confusion. What I would like to do, we have a motion on the floor and we have a second.
Mr. Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, the next council meeting is the work session.
No, the next
So in
council.
other words, when we meet at the work session, that's not a council meeting at all?
The next regularly scheduled council meeting where we can take action. Work sessions are work sessions. No action is taken at a work session. It is only a discussion between council and staff. No public comment is accepted in a work session. And what I have heard is there is a desire to table this for the next work session. That's what we have on
Table
Monday.
this until the next work session.
Right, is that your motion?
Yes.
We can do a voice vote on it.
Yeah, well, hold on, please. So we have a motion to table this matter for further discussion at the next regularly scheduled council work session. And we have a second for that. And I would ask the clerk to please do a roll call vote on that.
J. David Reed?
Yes.
Dave Frank?
Yes.
Judy Ann Files?
Yes.
Doug Glassbell?
Yes.
Ed Ulibarri?
Yes. So the motion to table passes. This will be scheduled on the council agenda for the next work session, which is 2 weeks from yesterday. Is that correct?
It'll actually be 2 weeks from today.
Oh, because of the holiday weekend.
Is the holiday.
Right.
So we'll have a work session and then the council meeting thereafter. The ordinance will not be on that council meeting, simply because of noticing requirements and everything like this. We're not going to be able to really have anything in that packet. So the work session will be just that. It will be the discussion, and then anything that we want to modify with the ordinance will have to be 2 weeks thereafter.
Okay. So council understands and agrees that what we're doing is that we'll be on the next regularly scheduled work session, which is Tuesday, the day following Labor Day holiday. It will not be on the Tuesday evening agenda because, as the councilor said, for noticing purposes, so it would be considered the following 2 weeks later at the regularly scheduled council meeting. We all understand and agree on that? Okay. Please. Sure. We'll take a 5-minute break, so we'll be back here at 8:33.
Thank you for doing that.
I'll just put it right back there. You know what? I'm just going to write it on here and take this. It'll be easier for me to do that. Yeah, I'll write it.
Even taking that, like, I know that language can but the penalties that are in the statute. How did you increase?
We start the whole process. We start now, basically. I want to give an
Yeah, no, I'm just because one day's about. It seems like it's gone like, it just seems like that jump is like. Yeah. Well, especially because, I mean, if we're talking about issue design, they're not gonna find house that, yeah, I mean, but they're not gonna find house the next day. So if the very next day, if they haven't fixed this, like, teething problem. And my concern is, just practically speaking, they're gonna be, you know, they're gonna be BLMs, they're, you know, like, you're just pushing them out of the city limits, and maybe that's cool, but it seems like, it seems like it's not even a Band-Aid.
I understand.
All right, if I could ask council to please be seated at the dais.
I think, I don't know, please repeat. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, I am going to reconvene the city council meeting for August 20th, 2024. We just took a brief recess, and the time is now 8:34. And we will move on to item number 12, which is city council consideration of ordinance 2666 on second reading, an ordinance of the city of Montrose, Colorado for the annexation of the Public Works Shop addition. And that, it will be William Reese. And William, I'm assuming we're going to do it as we did on first reading. We'll actually be taking 12 and 13 together for your presentation and then considering them separately, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, so for the public, item 13, which is ordinance 2667, which is also on second reading, is connected with item number 12 relative to the Public Works Shop addition. The first one being for the annexation of the Public Works Shop addition, and the second one being for the zoning of the Public Works Shop addition. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Reese.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, and members of the public. This should be the final meeting regarding both the Public Works Shop and the Rio Grande right-of-way annexations. And I do know that you've heard this prior, so I'll try to be brief tonight. Jace did take over for me 2 weeks ago on first reading on August 6th while I was out, and he did a pretty good job, so thank you, Jace. The Public Works Shop addition is a 23.3-acre site located south of where South Rio Grande Avenue turns east into East Oak Grove Road. It's located within the city's growth boundary and utility service areas and does meet the contiguity requirements as set by the state. The proposed zoning would be P Public District, which is typical of city-owned properties. We already do have some P to the southwest, as well as some commercial zoning to the south and industrial zoning to the east. And the R3 zoning that you see on this map is the recreational trail. This plat shows the exact metes and bounds, legal description of the annexation. This is an enclave currently, so if this is annexed, it would be eliminate one of those enclaves that we currently have in the city. Our comprehensive plan shows this area as residential mixed density medium and new river corridor district. As discussed previously, the intent of this property would be for the new public workshop. This is within Growth Area 1, which suggests that it's one of the most cost-effective areas for the city to grow. And so in summary, the area is urbanizing and the property meets all annexation criteria. We did file an annexation impact report with the county. We find that the proposal is consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare, annexation law, and the comprehensive plan. And we do recommend approval of the annexation and of the P Public District zoning. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
We did discuss this at length in work session, and then we had the first reading, so I assume and nothing has changed?
Nothing has changed.
Mr. Attorney, do you want us to go ahead and have him discuss 2667, or should we take action on the first and then go into the second?
Yeah, take action on the first and then go on to the second.
Okay, so we will take action on item 12, but first we'll open it up to public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance 2666 on second reading as presented.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Please vote.
Sorry, I vote yes.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 13, City Council consideration of ordinance 2667 on second reading, an ordinance of the City of Montrose, Colorado, providing for the zoning of the Public Works Shop addition as a P Public District. And again, Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing further to add.
I will open that up to, was there any council discussion? No, open that up to public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2667 on second reading as presented.
There's been a motion and a second. Please vote. That likewise passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 14, City Council consideration of ordinance 2668 on second reading, an ordinance of the City of Montrose, Colorado for the annexation of the Rio Grande right-of-way addition. And just for public information, similar to what we just did, item 15, ordinance 2669 on second reading is tied to 2668. So I'll ask Mr. Reese to discuss those, and then we will consider 2668 with public comment.
Thank you again. Since this is associated with the same project, I'll try to be even briefer in this presentation. This is follow the same timeline as before. This is a 1.14 acre site and consists of a small portion of the Rio Grande right-of-way that for some reason was not annexed when some of the surrounding areas were. This annexation does serve to clean up that sliver so that there's no question about the jurisdiction over that portion of the right-of-way. This is across the rec trail from the previous annexation, and the adjacent area is zoned P Public, which we are proposing for this annexation as well. This is the annexation plat, again showing the legal description of the piece of property that would be annexed. Our comprehensive plan does show this as residential mixed density medium, though this is a road, so there are no residential uses planned within this area. And then once again, this is in growth area 1. In summary, all annexation criteria have been met, and we do find that the annexation and associated zoning is consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare, as well as the comprehensive plan and annexation regulations. We do recommend approval of the annexation and of the P Public District. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion, council? I'll open it up to public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adopt ordinance 2668 on second reading as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. That likewise passes unanimously. We'll move on to item number 15. City Council consideration of ordinance 2669 on second reading, an ordinance of the City of Montrose, Colorado, providing for the zoning of the Rio Grande right-of-way addition as a P Public District. Mr. Reese, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing further to add.
Council discussion or questions? I'll open it up to public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance
2669.
2669 on second reading as presented.
There's been a motion and a second. Please vote. That likewise passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 16, City Council consideration of a water service area modification agreement with Tri-County Water Conservancy District to modify boundaries in the vicinity of 6600 Road between Locust and Draft Horse Roads. For that, we'll turn to City Engineer, Mr. Murphy, who I believe also serves to handle microphones that don't work, right?
Yeah, it's line 9 of my job description. Lisa, I don't know if the thing, it didn't populate an IP address, so I wonder if it'll give me one to punch in here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to kind of, no major changes from the last version except for a small clarification on one of the sentences in the memo that I'll go into when we get there. But I'll try and make this brief. Water service within this essentially Uncompahgre Valley, all the partners of Project 7 is kind of laid out by districts, or water service areas is the proper term, where everyone's kind of tried to pick the areas that seem most logical for hydrologic reasons, hydraulic reasons, and development reasons, land use, all of the things. But they need to change from time to time for various reasons, typically urbanization. So this is a proposal to, or an agreement with Tri-County Water to modify these district boundaries kind of on the fringe where the urban and rural and urbanizing is kind of working its way out to change over from an area that is currently served by Tri-County to be serviced by the City of Montrose. The area where we're looking at here on this map is kind of north of the intersection of Locust and Hillcrest. So if you can see my pointer, it doesn't show up too well, but right there kind of in the center, that's Locust and Hillcrest. So this area running north there, the green is currently serviced by Tri-County, the brown is currently serviced by the City of Montrose. To kind of help orient you, Bear Creek subdivision is kind of to the northwest on the top left of that figure there. Within this area, there's kind of three primary drivers. Within the city's water system here, it's a single feed for a relatively large area. Doesn't have any redundancy. Within our water master plan, it's identified a need to bring a secondary feed into this area to provide some backup should there ever be an issue. We don't want a single line to take out, hundreds of homes. We'd like to be able to typically try and backfeed so we can keep as many residences in water in an emergency. Second to that, with the urbanization that has been occurring in this vicinity, it's getting to a point where pretty soon Tri-County's system won't be able to keep up with this urbanization. And that's mostly a density thing. So with a high density comes higher fire needs. and higher demands on the system taking away from the capacity of that. The city systems, I'll say Tri-County system is a rural water system, typically not designed to provide urban levels of fire protection. The city system's built to a higher, albeit more expensive standard, to support that higher density and those fire protection needs. So as urbanization is occurring in here, it's kind of a natural progression is that the city's water district moves out in areas where the rural systems can't support that. Otherwise, you'd have no development and the implications that has on housing. The third is just the type of housing we expect in this area. So this area is zoned, a lot of it's zoned R4, which is high density multifamily housing. There's a couple of projects that are actually in the hopper, a couple that are being worked on the private side we haven't seen applications for yet. But this is a likely growth area for an important housing need in our community, which is the higher density middle housing. So all of those kind of mixed together to have this come to the surface. It's, going back to the water master plans, those go back at least a decade or so where this has been on the radar. But all those have kind of come together to make it a catalyst for this to now kind of make sense to start making these changes and working towards the improvements. The project that's planned here to accompany this district change is a main line running down Hillcrest. So the idea would be to possibly utilize portions of Tri-County system, change them over to the city, and then also construct an interconnect between the city's system and Tri-County. So water can go both ways to kind of bolster the resiliency and fire protection of both systems. Just kind of set this area up for this, the long-term, 50-year plan for what is likely to occur in this section of town. So nuts and bolts of the agreement itself, what happens is any properties that are currently within the city of Montrose would become city water customers. There is a change of rate. As I mentioned, city water systems are built to a higher standard, so to kind of maintain urban levels of fire protection, it costs a little bit more. It won't be fair for us to run a water line, provide fire protection to people that aren't city water customers and have our city water customers pay for that, because everything is internally funded by, the water is an enterprise fund. It's funded solely by its revenue from the users. So that transition would take here. We'd have some open houses to work with the neighborhood and help them understand, how it's going to happen and things of that sort. There's some questions asked about pressure. We have a little higher pressure in our system, so we'd actually include PRVs as part of that changeover, pressure reducing valves, so that if they can keep the pressure where it was, if they want higher, they can turn it up and use our higher pressure. A lot of times people do want the higher pressure. So that option would remain with the homeowners. Then obviously as development occurs, they would develop under city standards with city fire protection. And then any Tri-County customers that remain in the area that are in the county would stay Tri-County customers. So we'd work that out on the billing side with Tri-County. They would still receive a bill from Tri-County, still be billed according to Tri-County's rates. There's a question about, does this cause a rate increase for our water customers? No, this is the project that goes along with this is just a general water capital project. Our water fund is geared towards implementation of general capital funds and system expansions as needed. So this falls under that. That being said, water rates are generally going up every year for the next couple of years in support of the new treatment plant south of town. And so that's not related to this product or anything. This product's really small compared to that one. But yeah, within the packet is kind of some of the details on the rate differences, because it all obviously depends on water usage, and then also attached is the actual agreement itself. It was voted on by the Tri-County Board. They were a split vote. It was 6-5. Those against it were generally against it in the name of loss of revenue without compensation. The ones that were for it, generally saw that it was a mutual benefit to have more efficient infrastructure serving this area, and to facilitate, because of that interconnect, that facilitates the continued development of Brown Ranch and areas around it in Tri-County's district that wouldn't otherwise be able to happen as you hit that limit of fire protection within these portions of their district. So hope that wasn't too fast. Just trying to get all the main points and as short as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion or questions, council? We'll accept public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to enter into a water service area modification agreement with Tri-County Water Conservation District to modify boundaries in this vicinity of 6600 Road in Locust and Draft Horse Road as presented.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Item number 17, City Council consideration of a development agreement with SFP-E LLC to facilitate the extension of water and sewer infrastructure to Montrose Drive and the development of a new Les Schwab Tire Center. Mr. Bell?
I think I'll start this one, yeah.
Pardon me?
I can start this one.
Sure.
And I think I'll hit on this item and the next, because they kind of mesh together. I'll start with the infrastructure stuff. If I could steal the TV back, Lisa.
So you're going to discuss item 17 and 18?
Yep. So I think after this discussion, you can still vote on them in individual order, but the presentation will more or less cover both.
That's fine.
The screen, what's up on the screen here is Montrose Drive. So to kind of help orient you, Montrose Health and Human Services is on the north side of Montrose Drive. On the south side is a vacant lot. There was a church there a few years back that was demolished. It's generally kind of remained undeveloped, at least in my time here. When we did the Townsend Avenue water line replacement project, that was ahead of CDOT's overlays a couple of years ago. We've always been eyeing cleaning up the way the water service is provided to this portion of town. Right now, Health and Human Services has lines running on the private side, generally inaccessible to the areas to the south. And it's also, there's no redundant feed, which is generally, again, a thing we try and avoid on water systems. We always want to have them looped for water quality and backup service. So when we did that project, in anticipation of someday cleaning up Montrose Drive and not having to tear up Townsend again, we ran a stub across in line with Montrose Drive. So that's in place and done. There's an existing water line down by St. Mary's Drive to the east that's also existed. Also a dead end line, but they've never looped. And so we've been eyeing looping these lines, and then, as a follow-up project, likely when Health and Human Services redevelops, reconfiguring their services as well, so you have a single consolidated line that can provide fire protection and provides those redundant feeds. What's kind of helped move that up to the top was, we always looking for twofers and threefers. In this case, Les Schwab was looking to develop in this area. The infrastructure as it's set up now would not support really any development in this area, let alone a tire center. Tire centers have a higher fire protection standard than most as well. Being right on Townsend, prime commercial real estate, undevelopable is something we generally try and work to avoid. In this case, it's something that, if we could work on our waterline portions and continue that loop, it opens it up for development towards the south. The only one that's being considered now is this Les Schwab, but they do intend to do some additional development of potentially a drive-through restaurant and a hotel. So it opens up even more development in the area, or the potential for more development in the area through the kind of infrastructure investment here. The city budgeted $150,000 planning to run the bore portions east of here, which is kind of hard to see, but it's the dashed line on here. So running from kind of the center of Montrose Drive back to St. Mary's, that's well out of any product that would be considered related to the development. And then the portions to add on to that product to get to the total amount that's presented in the next item for the contract award is finishing in front of the frontage on Montrose Drive. And then in order to actually bring sewer to the site, an old abandoned obsolete duplicate water line needs to be, some services need to be transitioned over to open up the space to actually fit the sewer to bring sewer down to this site. So, a site that's challenging to develop. What's proposed in the development agreements itself is to support the waterline work. This would all be under a city contract. The project's been bid and is ready to award. And maybe on that one I'll go into just a little more detail on that item on the bids we received. So that would be done as a city project, contributed towards the just opening up this area for development. The second piece of that is, bringing in that sewer line is a little smaller project space-wise. The coordination with that and Townsend and all of the traffic control and things that would be needed. We are excited to hear that they would be willing to do that project with their contractor, so that one was set up as a reimbursement. And so within the development agreement, there is a table. I'll pull this up. For the Les Schwab development agreement that outlines essentially the city's primary contributions. So for the Montrose Drive Waterline Interconnect, the in-kind contribution is $334,000. That's the contract award amount. Being considered, that would be a city project that we'll consider, if this is approved, we would consider that next as a contract award. There was some sidewalk that needs to be redone on that street. That's on these kind of projects, it's not uncommon. That's a way we can help facilitate projects by doing work that, we do sidewalk replacements a lot. We're happy to do them. So those are all done by the city of Montrose, so that's listed on that table as an in-kind contribution. The reimbursement side is the sewer. So they would be constructing the off-site sewer, so that's the cost to bring the sewer down Townsend, repave a portion of Townsend, and get sewer up to the property line. And these are public mains, so this remains available for use by other lots and opens up this area for sewer development. That's written as a reimbursement, and it's also written in here that that reimbursement occurs once they get their CO. So you have a question?
I apologize for interrupting your presentation, but I think this is an important point, and you raised it earlier about this. By virtue of this, having this project, it opens it up for that area for future development. This investment in-kind contribution from the city of Montrose does not, and correct me if I'm wrong, does not benefit one single developer, but opens this entire area up to future development. Is that correct?
Certainly. Yep. Yeah. The reason this area essentially from Murdoch's north, there's a couple septics in there. There might be one like random service line that runs a really long ways to a sewer, but there isn't any city mainline sewer available that hydraulically is low enough to serve development of not just this parcel, but the ones south to it and even further beyond, and you get into a couple lots that have been eyeing redevelopment towards the south. They're really large lots right on Townsend with a single building on them. Couldn't support major redevelopment or a housing project. This would open that up.
Okay, without being specific, this could open up many, many more projects by doing this.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
It's a fair statement. Yep.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting, but I thought it was important.
That's great. Yep. And so that's the kind of the crux of the development agreement. Outside of that is performance standards in there of when they need to pull a building permit, which if you've seen, they're actually already under construction. They have completion dates for their CO, and then outside of this are the typical kind of staff level type stuff that Bill can do some of the permit fee waivers and stuff. But they weren't asking for any water or sewer capacity fees or anything like that. This is the extent of what's being requested for this project. And if you got anything to add, Bill, on that?
No, I think you covered it really well, and an important piece is that infill development, because we're trying to fill in those empty spaces throughout our community. It's just more cost effective and efficient that way.
Yep. I think that's very important. Questions, discussion, council?
Yeah, I'm concerned about this project.
Yep, microphone.
I am concerned about this project based on the fact that first of all, the county said it's around for almost $2 million. And with the building there, the county stands to make hundreds of dollars on taxes for property that the city doesn't get. And then we turn around and we provide this sewer line for two corporations that are multi-million-dollar corporations. And we have an owner who is separating the land that we're opening this development for, and then we turn around and giving them money to do this with, which, as you can see tonight, there was a lot of concerns about homelessness and other problems here in town, And I just don't think that this is the proper thing to do. It just,
You didn't expect the county to sell it to an entity that was not subject to tax.
the least they could do is give us some kind of consideration based on the fact that just recently we gave those considerations for the courthouse. I just feel that here we are with donating, in my opinion, monies to create own equity in the land.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying is, what concessions would the county have given us when they sold it to a private?
They would have volunteered to put in the sewer line to sell that property as part of it. But ask the city to do it.
Well, but the underlying point here, I think, is, yes, it's a benefit today to this particular developer, which is the triggering cause for doing this. But you've heard both the city engineer and the city manager say that this is opening that property, valuable property, up for infill development, which is very important to us to have infill development. And without this, we would not have it.
Yeah, well, here we're talking about, for example, they're talking about 10 to 12 full-time jobs with the benefits of $40,000 to $115,000. You're telling me that somebody is going to make $115,000 working at that tire place. I don't believe that's possible or true. And then I read that there's a possibility of them building a hotel, the owners leasing the land to build a hotel on. And to me, that's contrary to what we're doing out there at the Colorado Outdoors, because they're thinking about, in the process of negotiating for another hotel, how many hotels do Montrose needs, and how much money does the city have to put on to entice these people, when maybe it's about time that development pays its way. But that's how I feel about this thing. So I can't give support for this, nor for the project, for the actual contract either. So I'm just telling you how I feel about this. And to me, it's a health and public issue, because we have roads in this town, curbs and gutters and sidewalks that need to be repaired. Not 10 years from now, but now. We have homeless people that, hey, they need help. I'm tired of putting myself out for these people. One thing that I do agree with is the possibility that somebody said that if they go to jail, then they can get the help. But it doesn't do nothing here.
We're not talking about that issue now, Ed.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to make it that...
Okay, well, let's focus the conversation on this agenda item only.
The conversation is I don't think we should be giving city dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention some of the other stuff that they're probably going to come and ask for, building permits and that sort of stuff, when we have safety issues in this community. In my opinion, we have safety issues, okay? And that's it.
Any further comment or questions? Public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, I will entertain a motion.
Move to enter into a development agreement with SFPE LLC as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. Everybody voted?
No, Ed, did you save yours?
Sorry, I forgot to record.
All right, it passes on a 4-to-1 vote. with Mr. Ulibarri voting no. Item number 18, City Council consideration of a contract award to Ridgeway Valley Enterprises in the amount of $334,07 for completion of the Montrose Drive Waterline Interconnect Construction Project, which is part of this, and I think have you covered everything you need to cover on that?
I'll just add one quick more point on the project itself. So at least if I can steal the screen back. So this was put out to bid. We received 3 bids. You can see they're pretty tight. Ranging from 334 to 352. The low bidder is Ridgeway Valley out of Montrose. We've worked with them before. They're qualified to do the work and should do us a good job. The project will take place, on Montrose Drive itself. A lot of it's the boring back to the east, but there are some open cut portions. It is written in their contract they have to maintain access to Health and Human Services throughout. There is some work on Townsend as well. That'll mostly be shoulder work. There is one tie-in that will have to occur overnight. For a final tie-in, but generally should be pretty low impact to the public. The work should be done by the end of this year. Again, $150,000 was budgeted for the eastern portion of this, so that incremental essentially would be considered the economic development incentive and come out of a supplement as needed if there's a shortage in the water capital fund. So.
Thank you. Mr. Bell, do you have anything, Dan? Okay, council discussion.
Just a question, that $150,000, it'll come out of where again?
This is all a water mainline city water line project, so it all comes out of the water capital fund.
The water capital, and we just raised it, okay.
Yep.
Any further questions or discussion? Not all, public comment? Seeing no request for public comment, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to award a construction contract with Ridgeway Valley Enterprises in the amount of $334,037 for completion of the Montrose Drive Waterline Interconnect Project as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes 4-1 with Mr. Ulibarri voting no. And moving on to item number 19, City Council consideration of the purchase of a TASER 10 certification bundles from Axon Enterprise, Inc. for the total purchase price of $59,147.40. And for that, I will turn that over to Chief Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Tonight I come before you with consideration for approval of the Axon TASER 10 directed energy device. This would be approval for purchasing the Axon TASER 10, the devices, the warranty coverage that comes along with those devices, training our instructors to train our police officers on how to use those devices, and then all of the equipment, charging equipment, et cetera, to help maintain those devices. This would be entering into a contract with Axon. This would be year 1 of 5 of a lease agreement, year 1, and future years totaling each year to the tune of $59,147.40. This was a item that was budgeted in the 2024 budget. And also just to respond to Councilman Ulibarri, he asked during work session specifically a question relating to the number of units of tasers and then the unit cost of each taser. So I put pen to paper and I used a calculator and I made sure that that the quote added up correctly, and it did. And so I think we're getting everything that we're paying for. Yeah, yep. But I made sure, so we're good. And with that, I'd entertain any questions.
Questions, council?
No, thank you.
Any public comment?
It's coming.
Seeing no request for public comment, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of TASER 10 certification bundles from Axon Enterprises Incorporated for the total purchase price of $59,147.40 as presented.
Have a motion and a second, please vote. And that motion passes unanimously. That is the end of the action items for council tonight. We will move on to item number 20, staff reports, sales, use, and excise tax report, and our finance director, Shani Wittenberg.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Okay, so this is the June 2024 Sales, Use, and Excise Tax Collection Report compared to the same time period in 2023. The city collects 3% sales tax for general operations of the city. June compared to June of 2023, we see our first red mark, if you will, 0.8%. If we were to add in the URA TIF monies that's going towards that project, it would be a positive 0.7%. So not a huge difference, but just for your information. And I think we're going to work on how we can report those tax dollars, the TIF, to you all as well on a monthly basis. Construction use tax is up 54.1%. Use and auto use tax is up 12.3%, with total collections up 0.6% for June and a positive budget variance of almost 8%. Year-to-date collections compared to through June of 2023, retail sales tax is up 3.8% or $448,000. Construction use tax is up 29% or $62,000. Use and auto use tax is up 8.1% or $61,000, with total collections up 4.4% or $571,000. Positive budget variance of 7% or almost $880,000. More has been collected than we budgeted. Public safety sales and use tax is collected at 0.58%, so that's in addition to the 3%. June compared to June of 2023, retail sales tax is up 0.4%. Construction use tax is down 70.3%. Use and auto use tax is up 12.3%, with total collections down 4.7%. Negative budget variance, that's the first time I've said that in a long time, of 0.5%. That's just June compared to June. If you look at the year-to-date for public safety sales tax, the retail sales tax is up 4.2% or almost $100,000. Construction use tax is down 48.2% or $64,000. Use and auto use tax is up 8.1% or $12,000, with total collections up almost 2% or $45,000. Positive budget variance year-to-date of 5.8% or about $144,000 more has been collected than we budgeted. Montrose Recreation District, back in 2014, voters approved a 0.3% to be added to the sales tax to help them fund their new building. In June, $261,171 was collected, which is actually almost 5% less than we did in June of 2023. Year-to-date, we've collected almost $1.4 million, or 2% more than we did in 2023 through June, which is $24,000. Excise taxes, hotel excise tax adds 0.9%, and restaurant excise tax adds 0.8% to the total tax rate. In June, compared to June of 2023, hotel excise tax is down 31%, restaurant excise tax down 0.7%, with total collections down 11.1%, and a negative budget variance of 5.2%. Hotel excise tax and restaurant excise tax also is affected by the TIF in the URA. Those dollars are pretty small, $3,800 for hotel excise tax and like $2,800 for restaurant excise tax. So it would not have made a huge change to these numbers. And we are talking about pretty small numbers, as we'll see on the next slide. Hotel excise tax through June of 2024 compared to the same time period in 2023. Hotel excise tax is down 5.5% or $5,000. Restaurant excise tax is up almost 3% or $9,000, with total collections up 1.1% or $4,000. Positive budget variance here of 6.6% or $25,000. Another theory on these numbers is the bridge closure going to Gunnison. Not sure how that's affected our Front Range visitors, but it seems to have an impact on these numbers. Retail sales enhancement. In 1990, vendors voted to give up part of their vendor's fee. So 2% of the vendor's fee goes into a retail sales enhancement fund to promote sales in Montrose. In June, we collected $63,256, or 2.8% more than we did in 2023. Year to date, we've collected $324,900, or almost 5% more than we did through June of 2023, which equates to about $14,000. I would say that in June of 2023, we may have had some filers that didn't make the 20th deadline. So that's probably why you see a lot of green on this slide, is in 2024, they made that deadline. So you have to file the taxes on time to take your vendor's fee. Therefore, it impacts this fund if those taxes are not filed on time. And that is all I have for that report. I'll take any questions you may have. Comments?
Are these numbers on the hotel excise tax, lodging tax? When did the new hotel in Colorado Outdoors come online?
I believe it came on, I think it was June. It was either May or June. June.
So this probably doesn't reflect a full month of the operations there.
Well, that would be in the URA.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
And it certainly doesn't reflect the Rathbone because that just recently opened.
Yeah, with my mic, I'll just re-answer that, just so it's on the recording. So as Shane mentioned, we're gonna report to show what's captured in the URA, because this is just what's captured outside of the URA. So for a variety of reasons, we don't know for sure, but Gunnison closure, but also it would be expected the first couple of months of a brand-new hotel opening, that would draw some customers from where they normally would have gone, and then it balances back out. It's the new shiny thing, possibly as well.
I've driven by it several times, and it seems to be fairly busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell you, we had that AJGA, American Junior Golf Association tournament here in our community, and we had 30 rooms, 4 nights for each of those, so 120 room nights at almost $300 a night, and they were booked within a couple weeks. So, and they were booked solid, 100% capacity. And then Rathbone has been booked solid since opening. And so earlier you mentioned how many hotels do we need. I think when we open a brand new hotel and our room rates are still at $300 or more, that shows we need more rooms. So we at least need 1 more hotel, maybe 2 more hotels at current rate of travel.
Any other questions or comments, council?
Yes, please. I want a related question. Since you brought up the fact that the bridge closing could have affected our sales tax, back when we were first declared that emergency problem and we met with CDOT, wasn't there some mention about either state or federal assistance for the communities who were impacted? Bill's looking at me like he doesn't know what I'm talking about.
No, I do, because I talked to Commissioner Sue Hansen about it back at that time, and we were talking about ways to capture that data. And then we've talked a little internally, but it's very difficult we can look at the trend lines, which is what we can look at during the months of the closure and compare that to the 3 years prior or something. So how does Target look and all the other big box stores for that period of time versus the prior years? But but it's very difficult to tie a direct nexus. And it was my understanding you have to show proof that there was a nexus to that loss. I don't know unless Shani knows. I can't come up with a way to do that, but we can research it further and see if we've actually lost overall based on a 3-year average. And then if that's the case, then we'll look into the state and see if there is an opportunity to recoup any funds.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the report? If not, Shani will give the second quarter budget review.
Yes, so this report is in your packet. I don't have a PowerPoint on it, but basically what I do for you quarterly is let you know where we are revenue-wise, expenditure-wise, for all the major funds, and some of the capital projects. I outline that in a memo. Everything is looking, it's fine. I mean, we're collecting revenues at 50.4%. Our expenditures are down, they're 49% in most of the funds. So on that report, most notably, is the Black Canyon Golf Course, who is actually doing really well with 61% of their revenues collected through June, and only 43% spent. So, yeah, so that's just really for your information. There's a lot of data there. If you have any questions later, let me know. But I don't know that we need to belabor it too much.
Thank you. Any questions on that? None. Then City Council comments. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.